Yeah, I will share the mock document. Can you please check if you can access this document?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Great. Fine. So there are around 15 or 16 questions, if I can count correctly. Yeah, so there are 16 questions. So my plan is to run through all these questions, and I believe that all the core concepts that were taught as part of these 4 weeks will probably be covered here. And in case there are any additional doubts that you guys want to ask, I would be happy to assist you with those as well. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
let me paste the recording in the session event as well. The YouTube streaming link. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so I am gonna be sharing my screen. So please do let me know as and when my screen becomes visible to you. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yes.
All right. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pulling up this.
Sir, if prototype is
mock. Sorry.
If prototype is not part of this one, can you please cover prototype as well?
Okay. So just a quick thing about prototype. All right. So see, given that we have to go through a lot of questions, a lot of concepts in this same session. So in case there has been a topic which is already been discussed in much more details in one of the previous session, then instead of discussing it right here once again in those great details, we'll just take a quick recap of that, and probably I'll give you a reference to which video or which other tutorial you can actually visit or can refer to. All right. So talking about prototype. So every object, every function in JavaScript, what does it have is it has this by default property, which is known as this prototype, as someone was mentioning about it, prototype. Now, what is prototype and what do we do with it? So generally prototypes are used so that you can define some properties at the prototype of a given object so that the child of that particular object should be able to inherit that particular property. For example, you create a function. You create a function, say ABC, demo, whatever the name of that function could be. As I told you that every function, every object in JavaScript is going to have its prototype. It's going to have the access to its prototype. Now, you can write some code here. Of course, that is true. In JavaScript, it is actually possible to create an instance of a function. Right? So what you can do is you can actually create an object out of this function, or to be on similar lines so that you will be able to understand it better. Let's talk about classes. So let's say you create a class called person. You create a class called person, and you define certain properties, you define certain methods here. And at the end, what do you do is you create an object of that class. So let's say you create an object called P1. And this is how you are going to be creating an object for this. Okay. Now what we'll have is the object that gets created here, that is this P1, this will have its own prototype. This will have its own prototype, which is going to tell that what all properties can this particular prototype access, or this particular object can access. And what will happen is this prototype will have the prototype of its own as well. So this object must have been created from somewhere. So we know that this object is created from the person class. So this P1 will definitely have its own prototype, but even this prototype is going to have its prototype as well, because there is a parent that exists to the current entity as well. This prototype will only refer to this P1. So whatever changes that you will try to make in the prototype of this P1 will only reflect in P1 object. But if you want some changes or some additions to be reflected in every other object that gets created for this particular class, and you don't want to directly add that change within the class itself, then what you can do is you can follow the prototype chain. So what you can do is, as I told you before, P1 has its prototype, and this prototype of P1 will have another prototype that will refer to the prototype of this person class, because person is going to be the parent. So prototype can be understood as something like, or prototype chain can be understood as something like an hierarchy. So you go parent to parent, and this is how the prototype chain would actually be created. Firstly, we have the prototype for P1. And now if we look at where this P1 is derived from, this P1 is derived from person. So this person is also going to have its own prototype. Now this person can also be derived from some other class. And by default, in JavaScript, well, this class will, well, since in JavaScript, we basically have prototype-based inheritance. So even this person class is going to have its prototype that is going to refer to something else. So let's say there are a few methods present here. For example, say A1 and say A2. I'm just assuming that there are two methods present in this particular class, A1 and A2, and they do something. Right now, we are not concerned about what functionality do they help us to achieve. I'm just saying that there are two methods that exist for this particular class person. So whatever methods, whatever objects that you will create for this particular class, all those objects will have access to these functions. Do you guys agree with this?
Yes.
Whatever objects that I create for this particular class, all those objects will have the access to the methods that exist in this particular class. Okay. Now I have created this P1 object. So what I can do is I can say P1.A1. I should be able to execute this code without facing any errors. And the similar way, I should be able to do P1.A2. Now, but let's say I want to add some extra properties to this class. I want to add some extra properties to this class, and I don't prefer to add it here in the class definition itself. Then what do I do? And the main challenge is I have to add that property in the class. Well, of course, I would be invoking those extra properties or accessing those extra properties with the help of some objects that will be created for that class. But it might happen that the property that I want to access should be accessible across the objects. Let's say if you want a property that should only be accessible by this P1, then what you can do is you can add some property in the prototype of P1. So even in syntax, what you can do is you can write a syntax like this, where you say P1 dot prototype. And here you can define what property you would want to add. So let's say I can say, so we already have A1, A2. I can add A3 here and I can assign it some value. Either I can assign it a numeric value, a string type value, or even a function. Just like A1 and A2 are defined as functions, here also I can define it as a function. Now, what would I be able to do is I would be able to do P1.A3 after I do this. Remember, this A3 function does not exist in the class in its original definition. What we are doing is we are trying to add some properties to this particular object with the help of the prototype object. The moment I do that, in the very next statement, I become eligible to write a code like this, where I will try to access the property that I just created with the prototype object of P1 object.
So
But
doubt.
the question is, yeah, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt this. Prototype, is it like something in Java what we have the constructor, but the Java constructor does not allow or have not seen that it is adding something more outside the class, but here it is allowing. Is it something like constructor and
See, constructor is something that only gets invoked when you create an object of that particular entity or class,
correct.
right? But here we are adding those properties even after creating the object. The object got created here, but we are adding extra properties after it. Okay, so that would be certainly different than what constructors are. Okay.
May I ask a question? One more here.
Yes.
p1.prototype.a3, is that the syntax that we have to use, saying p1 I'm using this prototype definition for a3 and it is a function? Is that the
Yes.
assignment that we have to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the question that I want to put in front of all of you is, if I create another object of the same class, say P2, and if I try to say P2 dot A3, what do you expect to happen at this point of time?
It
So
should
function
not
not
work.
defined.
Exactly, because P2 will check this A3 property in its prototype. It will say, okay, I don't have any such property defined. So what will it do is it will go to the parent and will check whether that property exists in the prototype of the parent. Who is the parent? Parent is the person class. Does A3 exist in person class? What do you think?
No.
No, A3 does not even exist in person class. Now it will go to the parent of person. Of course, even it will not exist there. And ultimately, it will lead to an error saying that A3 is not defined. And if you will try to invoke it, definitely it is going to be an error saying that A3 is not defined and you cannot invoke it, something like that. Okay. Now the challenge is, how do you make this newly added property accessible to every other object that you will create for that particular class?
I think we can invoke using person.prototype.
Yeah, of course, you can directly add. Okay, let me get it cleared first. You can directly add that property by saying person dot prototype. So you are saying that anything that will be derived from person should be able to access whatever additional property that you will define here. Okay, this is one way. But we also have to look at another way where you should not be touching the class at all. You will, let's say you don't even have the access to class, and all you can do is you can work with objects. In that case, how would you deal with such a scenario? You want an extra property, an additional property to be added such that it becomes accessible to every other object that exists for that particular entity or class.
Can we do something with the constructor?
Okay. Can you please elaborate? What can we do with the help of constructors here?
No, I mean, we could probably manipulate the constructor and have some function within it that whenever we create an object of the class, then automatically.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have the access to the class, so you cannot directly go to the class and add some or make some modifications there.
Okay.
You have the possibility of that call or apply, isn't it?
See, the purpose of using call, apply, and bind is to change the execution context of the particular function that you are trying to invoke, call, apply, or bind with. But here what we are doing is we are trying to add a property so that it becomes visible to every other member of the same class. Okay. So just like we talked about, there is something called prototype chain that exists, like a prototype chain. So if I am saying, so assuming that we have two objects P1 and P2 that we have created in the previous slide. So I was discussing that P1 will have its own prototype property, and so P2. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now, the additional properties that you will add in the prototype of P1, they will not become accessible to P2 and the vice versa. So what we need to do is we somehow need to reach the class level so that we are able to perform something like this. Someone rightly mentioned that we can do person.prototype. We can directly add a new property in the prototype of the person class itself. But if that is not an option, then you will have to reach this level. That means you will have to reach the prototype object of the person class with the help of an object of that person class itself. So as I was telling you that there is a prototype chain that exists where the prototype will refer to the parent. So here we all of us know that P1 and P2 are going to be the child instances of the parent class person. Can we assume that?
Yes.
Can we say that
Yes,
P1
sir.
and P2 are derived from the person class? Yes. I hope we all can agree to this. Now, P1.prototype only gives you the access to the prototype of P1. But if you will go one more level here, you will try to go one more level up, then what you're saying is, I am trying to access the prototype of current object. So now think it like this. This is a big box, which you can assume as the person class. This is a small box, which you can think as the object, which is P1. Okay. P1 has its own property, you can say prototype, and person also has its own prototype property. Now, whatever changes that you will make here in the prototype property of this P1 object, they will not be reflected for other objects of the same class. So what you need to do is you need to add those new properties in the prototype object of the person class. So what happens is prototype chain binds or references to the parent. So P1, since it is derived from the person class, the prototype property of the P1 object will refer to the person class prototype object if you will try to use a syntax like this. Let us quickly write a class-based example so that you understand that yes, there is a prototype that exists.
Sir, isn't we need to use this dot prototype because whenever we are using the
See, this will be
protection,
used when you are writing a code inside a function. Generally, you will use this when you are writing the code inside a given execution context that generally comes when you are writing your code inside a function. Right now, we are not even talking about functions. We are
no,
trying to add some
in
additional
general,
functions.
actually, sir, in general, whenever we need to refer a class, like whenever we need to refer a current instance, so we are usually use, just in Python, we are using self dot something, which means we are referring to inside another function, yeah,
Yeah, that I
parent
get
instance.
it. That I get it. But you will use this when you want to refer to the calling object or when you want to refer to some object. So that's what I'm saying. You will be using this inside some kind of method. Let's say
Oh,
you
okay,
are creating
yes, sir,
this
yes, sir.
A3 method, and here you want to access the property, let's say ABC, that exists on a given object. Then here it makes sense for you to use this dot ABC, where this
Mm-hmm.
will refer to some object.
Thank you, sir. Got it, got it.
Okay, so let me quickly create a class called person. So, so we have created a class person, and if I create an instance for that, this is also created. And if I print P1 here, then look at it. The person object has come here, and the person object has its own prototype. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Are you
sir.
guys able to see this? So this is the prototype of the
Object.
P1 object.
So every object has its own prototype. It
Every
is.
object has its own prototype, and that prototype is going, okay, so the prototype chain is going to be formed this way, that the prototype is going to refer to the prototype of the parent. then again the prototype of the parent is also going to refer to the prototype of its own parent. So here we can see the hierarchy exists like object, then person, and after that, at the end, it is going to be an object. And object will by default have all these properties. And this is the end of the prototype chain here. If you don't have any parent sitting beyond a certain point, then the prototype chain will end at that moment itself. Are you getting it?
Can you repeat this part once again, please? We saw the prototype here.
So what I'm saying is the prototype chain will end at the point when there is no parent sitting after a given entity. So here we are saying that P1 can be considered a child of person, and person can be considered as a child for object. And after object, once we reach this level of object, there is no parent that exists for this particular object entity here. And
Right.
that is why what I'm saying is, if you will try to access p1.prototype, this will only give you the access to p1 object. If you do one more prototype, this will give you the access to the person. If you do one more prototype, it is going to give you the access to this object. And beyond than that, there is basically nothing that exists in the prototype chain.
Yeah.
So it does not make sense for you to use one more prototype beyond than that, because this is the end. And you can see we are not able to see any other prototype beyond than the object. After that, we are able to see what all properties an object instance gets.
Sir, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
So I'm saying that, like, you're saying P1 is the object of the person class. So if I do P1.prototype, I'll be able to access this person class.
No.
And okay, that I got that wrong. A second question is like P1.prototype.prototype. What does that give then?
P1.prototype.prototype will get you to the level of the person class. P1.prototype is an encapsulation for the P1 object itself, because every object has a prototype. And that prototype is going to refer to the prototype of the parent of the current entity. Okay, so we are saying P1, since we created P1, it will have its own prototype, but it is going to refer to the parent of the current entity. So who is the parent of the current entity? P1, it is the person. So this prototype will be referring to the parent of the current entity, which is P1, and it is the person class in reality. Are you getting it?
No, sir. P1.prototype is an object or it's a class?
P1.prototype will be an object. See, if you are talking about prototype, it will always be an object. You have to understand that what entity it is representing at this point of time. So if you are saying P1.prototype, you are only representing P1. You are only talking about P1 context. Whatever changes that you will make in the prototype of this P1, they will only be reflected in P1, and no other object of the same class will be able to see the changes, the modifications that you do. But if you move one level up and you say that I want to access the prototype of P1, now it's the time to think about who is the parent of P1. So who is the parent of P1? Person is the parent of P1. Now, the changes that you will make here, P1.prototype.prototype, at this level, they will become visible to all other objects of the same class. Let us quickly write an example for that as well.
So, sir, in short, the object which we are creating for a class has own prototype, which is referring to the current instance, and
Yes.
class has a own prototype, which is referring to a object, like superior class, and nothing else.
Yes, yes, you can say that. Because there is
So
a
we can,
concept of prototype chain. Every
Yes.
derived
Yes, sir.
instance must know that where that entity has come from. Okay, so let me quickly create two methods here, say A1, and all it will say is console.log A1, nothing much. the same let's do with
So p1.prototype will refer to the person, p1.prototype will refers to the object, and that's it.
no. p1.prototype will not refer to the person. I'll come to this. Okay.
Okay.
So right now, there seems to be nothing in the prototype of the current object. So now let me directly do this. So if I try to say p1 dot a3, sorry, p1 dot prototype dot a3 equals to okay, let me try to assign it a value of 10. Okay, it is saying cannot set properties of.
I think we need to use a different environment.
Okay. Maybe the property will work. Yeah. So if I say p1 dot proto, all right. So see what proto is. Proto will simply refer to the prototype property. So looks like right now we are not getting the direct access to the prototype property, so we can access it with the help of proto. Now,
Sir,
yes.
there's one thing. Prototype is only for the functions, and proto will include both functions and the properties. So I think that is the difference.
Okay, yeah, you might be correct. I will have to just get it checked once, but yes, you might be correct here. So this proto is something that you can use as an alias in order to access the prototype object for a given entity. Now, what you are doing is you are trying to add A3 on the or on the prototype property of this P1 object. Now, if you try to say console.log P1.A3, what do you expect the answer to be?
10.
10.
Yes, you can expect 10 here. We are getting 10. Now, let's quickly create a new object and let's see what happens. Are we able to access that or not? So I do P2 and now, okay, let me create it as a function so that it makes more sense. A3. A3 and let's invoke it. Okay. And since we are simply invoking it, so I don't need to use console.log here. This is anyway going to give me the results. So p1.a3, it should print A3 on the screen. So we are getting A3 on the screen. So this is something that we have discussed so far. Now, let's try to access the A3 property with the help of P2 object. And if we do so, okay, so this proto.
So why P2.A3 is also running A3?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Why P2.A3 is also running A3? How the P1.prototype is getting
Okay, so your voice is kind of getting mixed with the noise.
Sir, can we discuss the mock first and then we can do this, please?
Okay, all right. So let's come back to this topic post discussing the mock questions. Maybe a few people would be waiting for that. Okay. So we are going to be having 15, 16 questions here. So let's try to quickly discuss these concepts as well. So here we are expected to find out the output of the given program. And the program is given such a way that there are two objects that are created. with some properties, x1 and func1, func2. These are the properties that exist. And all this program does is it invokes the func2 function of B object. So what will happen in that case is the func2 function that you are able to see here, this function will get triggered. And what this function actually does is it creates a reference of the func1 function that exists in the object A. So a.func1 will refer to this function that you can see here, function1 console.log this.x1. And now the reference that you created here, C, which is actually a reference to this func1 function, you are calling that function by changing the execution context for this particular function by using one of the call, apply, or bind method. Here we are using apply. Remember, what does apply do is it just changes the value of context. It replaces the value of this with whatever you want it to be. So here you expect that if you are using this inside the function, which is being referenced by the C variable, it should always refer to B object. That means this inside func1 function, you expect this to be referring to B object now. Can someone tell me what is this 10 here? 10 array?
Input to a function.
Input to a function, but do you think that this A function accepts anything as of now?
No.
No, this 10 will be discarded, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in JavaScript, what happens is if you invoke a function without giving the parameters that it requires, or if you try to give additional parameters, then JavaScript is kind of flexible. It does not complain in either way. If you are passing less parameters, then the parameters which were not given a value will be taken as undefined. And if you are passing some extra values, then they will simply be ignored. Okay. So here, the 10 that you are passing here, this does not make any sense here, or this can even be discarded. This may or may not be here. Well, for now, there is no use of it.
So if I put a variable
what
in
you need to
func1 function, will it work? If I let's say func1, if I say func1 colon function A, then will it take the value?
Okay. So you are saying that the func1 function takes an input or a parameter A.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that case, the A will get the value 10. Now it depends whether you are using that A somewhere in the definition. For now, you can see that it is not being used. So if you will use that, yes, A will indeed get that value that you are passing here.
Okay.
So can someone predict that what is going to be the value of this here when this function will be invoked? So this function is getting invoked when you apply a function, call apply function on it. Apply function is simply going to invoke that function with a different context, and the context that you are passing is B. So is it safe to assume that this will be replaced with B here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you do console.log this.x1, it will be equivalent to B.x1. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what do you expect the output then? If you say B.x1?
20.
20.
20. So 20 is going to be the answer to this question. I hope there is not much difficulty in this.
So
yeah.
Go on, Ravikant.
Hello, sir. Here a.func1 is assigned to C, like the function is assigned to C, and like we are calling with the help of C. So how does it say that now the scope is inside B?
Here, when you say C.apply, so C is what? C is actually a function. And you are using apply method with it. Remember, apply is the JavaScript method. It is not a method that you have defined on this C. C is just a function. C is just a function reference, which is getting the reference of this func1. This apply is the JavaScript function that allows you to change the context of the function at runtime. So if your function is making use of this inside its definition, then it's a way for you to alter the definition of that this or the reference of this.
Okay, sir. Correct. Understand.
So here, this.x1 will simply be replaced with b.x1. And that is why we are saying that the output will be 20.
So b.func2 will call func2 in const b, in which C is calling a.func1 or assigning a.func1, and c.apply is again passing b.
Okay.
Is that what
so see,
I'm getting?
So this a.func1 that you are seeing here, so this a.func1 that you are seeing here, what is it doing is, it is just trying to say that now I don't need to say a.func in order to call this function. What I can do is I can simply invoke this function by using p. So for now, you can understand that this C is actually an alias for a.func1.
Func1, okay.
For now, you can understand it as an alias. Now, every function in JavaScript will be allowed to use call, apply, and bind, which will allow them the flexibility to change their execution context at the runtime. Now, remember C is a function, or you are using it as an alias for a function here, func1, right?
Yeah.
You are using apply function with it. Yeah, sorry.
Go on, please. So c.apply, when you say it is a.func1.apply is what it is being read as, correct?
That's correct. If you say a.func1.apply, that also does the same thing.
Okay. Now,
all it requires is a function reference.
After that, we are in the apply, we are passing b as the
value of this, the replacement of this.
Okay.
So wherever you are using this inside the calling function, then it will be replaced with whatever value you will pass as the first parameter to apply.
Okay.
And anything that you write after that, if the function that you are trying to invoke accepts any parameters, they will be accordingly considered. Otherwise, they will be simply discarded or ignored.
Sir, in the given scenario, this c.apply b in array we are passing 10. If we execute the code with existing code, it's not giving any output. But if we take out 10, then only it is giving 20.
So you are saying that if you write the same code as it is, then it is not giving any output, is it?
Right.
Can you paste that code in the chat, please?
Okay, fine. Just let me.
In the meantime, may I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
So in func1, we have only console.log. Let's say in func1, I end up defining something which is equivalent to what I'm doing in func2, calling func2 there. So it'll get into infinite loop. This will call that, that will call this, this will call that, that will call this.
That's true. Yes.
Okay.
So why we are getting 20 as the output? Yeah.
Sorry. If we log C, C will be a function only, and C is not going to store any value. Is that what is happening?
Yeah, of course. C is just a reference to a function. Yes.
So just in case, if we use c.bind b in that case, then we will have to call it. That will still be a function definition, that is, and then we have to call it separately again.
Yeah, that's true, because bind actually returns a function. It does not invoke the function immediately.
While apply here will directly call it.
Yeah, call and apply will directly invoke the function.
Okay.
Sir, again here, instead of b.func2, we can directly say b of, is it? To invoke the function.
b.func2, you can directly say what?
B open parenthesis, close parenthesis.
No.
Will it invoke func2?
B is an object here.
Okay.
If you see, B is an object here. So if you will try to invoke an object just the way you invoke a function, then this will be problematic. Okay. You want to invoke function func2 of object B that belongs to B. So that's why we have written b.func2.
Okay.
Sir, in case inside this function, inside the parenthesis, if there is any variable a is there, then this 10 can be called the array.
Yeah, then this 10 will make sense, or this 10 will be copied to the parameter that you will accept here. Has someone written this code, maybe I can just execute it in the
Sir, I shared it in
compile.
the chat. Can you please see?
Okay.
If you take out that line number here, 13, 10, then it is giving the output, the array value. If we just make it null, that time it is giving actually. Okay.
So the call to func2 is missing.
Okay.
That's copy error, but it is not okay.
We are getting the output 20 here.
Yep.
So I executed in the this VS code using this Node.js. I don't know why. What?
Yeah, this environment is also making use of Node.js.
Not sure why.
If I paste it in the browser as well, or I could directly say v.fun2, I should be able to get it. And yeah, just to come to the other people's question here, that let's say this function accepts a parameter called a. Then if you will try to print this a as well, then whatever value that you are passing here will be copied to this a. Now we should be able to get the output 2010.
No, sir, you are right. Actually, maybe earlier I committed some mistake. It is coming.
Okay. All right, no issues. So if you are passing some additional values while calling the apply function, and your function also, the function that you are trying to invoke, also accepts those extra parameters, then the values will be copied to the respective parameters. Let's say if you have 3 values here, A, B, C, and you are passing only 2, let's say 50 here, then A will get the value 10, B will get the value 50, and C will get nothing. So C will be primarily defined as undefined. So 10, 50, and undefined. So A gets the value 10, B gets the value 50, and C undefined. Is it understood?
Sir,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
value 10, which function will get?
Come again, please.
Sir, the value 10, which one will get? A, B, or C?
A. So you can see the order here. Firstly, this dot x1 will be printed, then A, then B, then C. So here, this is the value of this dot x1, this is the value of A, this is the value of B, and this is the value of C.
Okay, sir.
So line number 4, then this what we are assigning, that is not as an array, right? I mean, it's not a list. How does it know that this has to go to AB, the 10 and 50?
See, in array, what is fixed is the order of elements. The index of elements is fixed. So it knows that the first element in the array should be given to the first parameter, the second parameter in the array should be given to the second parameter, and so on.
Okay, so not like other coding language, it need not to be a argument type of array.
Okay, see, you are confusing it with something else. Remember, when you are doing c.apply, you are not directly invoking this function. It is going to be the apply function, which will in turn invoke this function. So the arguments that you are passing to apply, they have to be in accordance to the format that is specified by apply. This function, if it is accepting 3 different arguments, but apply expects you to pass those arguments in an iterable. Remember, this is a wrapper. This is a kind of an abstraction that is created over the calling function, the function that is being invoked.
And whereas for
if
call,
you want to directly invoke this function, a.func1, then if you do it this way, then this would be considered as a single value and only A will get this entire array. B and C will get nothing. Are you getting it?
Yeah, okay.
So the same thing with the call method, we can give without the
Yes.
response.
So if you replace this apply with call here, then you don't need to pass those as iterable anymore. Then you can pass them as arbitrary arguments like this. If you click on run, then this will work. But if you try to wrap them inside an array, then what will happen is the same problem will happen, that this entire array will be given to a single variable, which will be A, since it comes first. Is this understood?
This was not even applied, right, sir?
Okay.
I'm sorry, but your voice is kind of not clear to me. It is coming with a lot of noise mixed with it. Okay, is this question clear to all?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think we should try to speed up a little bit here as we have a lot of questions to discuss. Fine. So consider the following JavaScript program and predict the output if executed. So we again have two objects. We are again calling the func2 function. I think this is the same. What else is different? Okay, like some. Okay, the function implementation is different here. Seems like. And what is happening is you are again calling the func2 function. The control goes there. You again create an alias of a.func1 and you put it in C. And then this time you are calling apply function with C without providing any parameters at all. So one thing is that since this function does not accept any parameters, so the additional parameters that you intended to give, they don't make any sense because they will simply be discarded or ignored. But what is missing here? Can someone guess?
The context.
Function context.
Function context.
Context is missing here. The first argument always has to be the context, which is also missing here. And if that is missing, then by default, the function will be invoked with the reference of the global object. If you omit the first parameter from apply, call, bind, etc., then what you are doing is you are trying to replace the context with the global object. So this inside this function called C will be referring to the global object. And now let's look at what this func1 function do. What does it do is it says 5 plus this dot x1, this value should be logged onto the console. So what do you expect? This is a global object here. This is clear to you.
Nan.
What do you think 5 plus this dot x1 would yield?
5 plus undefined.
Yeah, 5 plus undefined. Yeah, that's true. That's the correct guess. So 5 plus undefined, what do you think? What would be the output?
Not a number.
Not a number. That's correct. So we shall be getting NaN. So are you able to understand this? Since we are not passing any parameter in the apply function, by default, it will be assumed to be the global object. So this will refer to the global object. And in the global object, there is no property x1 or no variable that is created with the name x1. So this will yield a value of undefined. And if you will try to add undefined with a number value, it will yield not a number.
So, sir, this is true. Sir, this is true for all three
Yes.
functions. No, sir, apply,
Apply,
call,
and
bind.
bind for all.
We need to give at least one parameter, which is the function context.
No.
Otherwise,
See,
it will take.
again, you don't need to give one parameter for sure. Even if we are not
Sure.
giving one, it is still working. It is not an error.
Okay. If you are
So the
not
answer
giving, then it will take window.
That's true. Yeah. Window in the context of browser, you would say global this in the context of Node.js. So rather we take a general notation and say global object. So global applies for both browser as well as Node.js environment.
So, but both gives different results.
Sorry? So no, I mean both will give an NaN because like in this dot x will give undefined when a browser is when we are using browser environment. If we are using node environment, then this dot x also given an undefined.
So I mean, why it is going to be a different result in both environments? I didn't get it.
But if x1 was defined in the global object, in the browser it gives a different result. And
that's true. That's true. That's true. Okay. So the third question, again, we have to predict the output. Again, we have to
So could I ask a
look
question?
around this and yes.
Sir, I pasted some code in the chat window, okay, where let x1 is equal to 10. Okay, that is the only change that I have made.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
So when I log this, it is definitely the global object, as you described. Some of what fails me is if I just make it x1 is equal to 10, okay, if I leak x1, okay, it works. But if I say let x1 is equal to 10, okay, a bit unclear over there. That also gives an n.
Okay, so if you say let x1 equals to 10, then you get what?
Nan.
Okay,
Not a
yeah,
number,
fine.
not a number, okay. But if I say x1 is equal to 10, I get 15. Okay.
This is based on the same concept as some other person was just asking, probably just a few seconds ago. So this is dependent on the environment that you are executing this code on, and you will have to understand how that environment behaves. So see, what happens is when you try to use var property or you don't use anything at all while creating variables, in that case, what happens is these variables that you create, let's say you write var a equals to 10. If this statement comes outside the scope of all the functions, then this a will automatically be added to the global object. Let me try to show it here as well. Let's say for now, if I say window, in window, if I expand it, are you able to see any property ABC?
No, sir.
But if I do var ABC equals to 10, and if I again print the value of window and expand it for you, can you see ABC now?
Yes. Yes.
So this is the reason that when you create a variable using var, it automatically gets added to the global object, or here in the browser environment, you can say in the window object. And since we are saying that this is referring to the, in the above question, this is referring to the global object, that is why this x1 property becomes accessible and it gives a valid result. Are you getting it?
Got it perfectly, sir. Now I get it. Thanks.
Yes.
Sir, if we didn't use any keyword like let const and var and declare a variable, then it is also creating a global property, na sir? Like property
Yeah,
in a
by
global
default,
object.
it will be assumed to be declared with var. It's just that the variable will not be hosted.
Oh, okay.
The variable will not go through the hosting process. Okay, again, there is a question here. I think this is going to be based on the similar concept that we just discussed. So you have created a variable named x with the keyword called var. Then you have an object which also has this x property. It also has this function, and then you are trying to create a function that does something. You are trying to invoke that function, and at the end, what you are doing is you are trying to print the value of x and obj.x. Now, let us take a few guesses. What do you think the output here should be?
Option 1.
Option 1, which says 20 and 10. So x is
x outside this thing,
5
it is
and
5 only always.
Yeah, 5 and 20.
okay. So I have gotten two responses here: 20 and 10 and 5 and 10. Does anyone think that there could be 5 and 10, 20 as well?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can the output be 5 and 20? So that means we have a mixed of responses. That a few of you are voting for A, some of you are voting for B, and the rest are voting for C. Is it?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So let's quickly hear the opinion of the people who think that the first answer is going to be the correct output. So anyone who thinks that first answer is going to be correct, can you explain why do you think so?
Sir, as you explained just now, if we declare a variable using var, it will create a property in a global object. and arrow function don't have own this, so it means it is referring to a global object, I mean global property, this.x. So when we are using obj.fun20, we are basically passing a x, or we are basically passing 20 as an argument into a x and assigning into a global property. After that, we are just printing x. So this is 20 and obj.x is 10.
You are almost correct. I'll just correct one thing in your explanation post getting the responses from the other people. Okay.
Sir, this is
Yeah, thank you.
the first
Thank you for
would
following.
be hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, first option will be correct, right?
Yeah, first option will be correct. We are discussing that why should that be correct and why others should also be correct. So I
Because
have heard the opinion of
because we are passing 20 with the function. So
yeah, I'll come to
and
that. Yeah, we'll discuss that which all options are correct and which all options are wrong and why. We'll discuss that.
okay.
But anyone who thinks that the second answer could be correct here, the output is going to be 5 and 10. Would you like to explain why?
Sir,
Yes.
console.log x and object.x. X is taking the global value that is equal to 5. And object.x is object within the object function, x value is equal to 10. So 5 and 10.
Okay, fine. What about the third person or the people who think that the third option could be correct?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, this code is run in the browser or not, sir?
Right now, you don't know.
It's because the browser is a bit different.
So the reason I told about 5 and 20 is, I mean, now you've given me a hint that browser, and so I was thinking about browser. So this would be the window object, and this.x already has 5, so it would get 20, and that's how I figured that out. Okay.
So it is
it
5
appears
and
that
10 actually.
Okay, all right. So has anyone written this code? Can I get text-based version of this code if possible?
So what your opinion, sir? What is the output of this code?
Sorry?
Hello, like, what is your opinion on this? What
Yeah,
is the
we'll
correct
discuss that. I just want to show
Okay.
the outputs by running it in a online compiler. Can someone please paste the text version of this code for me in
Done,
the
sir.
chat if possible?
It's in chat.
Thanks. Okay. So if I execute this code here, then you can see the output is coming as 20 and 10, right? So the people who answered the first option is correct. Yes, definitely you are correct. There is a small explanation that I want to provide in that context. And if I execute this code here, then this yields a different result. It says it is 5 and 10. So the second option is also considered as correct here. So we can see that two different environments are giving two different outputs for the same code. Well, coming on to the correction that I want to provide for the person who explained the first option or first answer. Well, there you said that this inside an array function refers to the global object. Just to correct that, this does not always refer to the global object. Instead, it refers to the parent execution context inside an arrow function. And when I correct this criteria, that if you understand it like this, that this inside arrow function is not referencing to the global object, but the parent object, or you can say the parent execution context, then it gives you the clarification that why 5 and 10 would also come as an answer. Okay. So does anyone know that when you write JavaScript program, how does it execute in a browser or let's say in some compilers like I am using here? Do you think that there is any difference between the two?
Sir, there's a difference between running it on a script and running it on a terminal.
Yeah, what is the difference?
I am not exactly sure.
The window object.
I can say,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, whereas browser has the window object, whereas the script doesn't.
It does not have the window object, but both of them have the global object available. In Node.js, you can call it with the help of global this. In browser, you can call it with the help of window. That is okay. But why are we getting two different outputs? Here we are not even talking about window and global this. Okay, so see, what happens in case of browser is the code is executed as it is. There is no extra work put into whatever you write as a program, that is automatically something that gets executed. There are no changes that are being made on the existing programs that you are trying to execute. But when you try to execute your program as a script means you try to use Node.js and say you write your code in a file and you try to execute that file. Remember, I'm saying you try to execute a given JavaScript file. So for example, what is happening here is I am trying to write my code in a file named main.js, and this main.js is actually being run behind the scenes. So it is running a command called node main.js in the backend as and when I'm clicking on the run button. So this is what is happening. Okay. So in this case, in this scenario, when your code is being executed in the script mode, what happens is all the code that you write, your entire program is actually wrapped inside a function. So function, let's say you create a function, need not be, let me say, let's leave it anyways. Fine. So what will Node.js environment do is Node.js will create a function like this, a temporary function, and whatever code you are trying to execute, you are trying to run, that code will be injected in this function. The code, try to understand it, will be injected inside this function. So the code that we were trying to previously execute, and this is exactly what will happen. So this code, this entire code will be injected in this function. And now, remember, your code is injected into a function, and the by default nature of function is that they never get executed until they are explicitly invoked. Then there is a call that needs to be made for this function to get invoked, so that whatever logic that you have written also gets the execution. So in that case, what happens is it creates an environment like this. So I hope I have created it as an IAFE, and maybe I can create an object. So maybe I can share you that Stack Overflow thread as well that explains this thing nicely. So say a object, something like that, and a, and yeah, that's all. Probably you can say a. So what is happening is behind the scenes. Remember, all these things are happening behind the scenes. Whatever code that you are writing, so this is the code that you are trying to execute. If you are executing it inside the script environment, this entire code will be injected into a function. You can see this function got created here, and this function will be invoked with the execution context of a temporary object. Just like this is a temporary function, similarly, a temporary object will be created by the environment, and that temporary object will be passed as an execution context to this or to this function. Now, think about it. Think about it. When you are saying this dot x here, this is an arrow function. And as I said before, that this inside arrow function derives the value from the parent execution context. Now, you have to look at what is the value of this in the parent. So what is the value of this inside this function? Can someone tell me?
Object A.
Object A, which is an empty object. So there are no properties that exist, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this will create a property in an object A. This dot X.
Exactly. So this dot x will actually create a property in this temporary object, and you are referencing to that property nowhere here. X means the x that you are creating here, and obj.x is the property that you are creating here inside the object. So when you are trying to execute your code inside a script mode or using script mode, then behind the scenes, your entire code will be injected into a function, and that function would be invoked with a temporary object execution context. And since inside arrow functions, again, I'm telling that this can be derived from the parent execution context, and the parent, which is this function, says that I have the value of this to be a temporary object. So this arrow function will say, okay, I will also consider the value of this to be this temporary object. And that is why this x will be unaffected in that case.
So in this case, sir, where x equal to 5 will go,
Remember, I told you that
it will go in the
any
global
variable
object.
created using var will be added as a property to the global object, but there is a condition to that. The condition is that the variable should be created outside of all the functions.
Correct.
If you create a variable inside a function, then it will not be created as a property inside the global object.
That will be local for that function. In that
it will be local, yes. This value will be destroyed. This variable will be destroyed as soon as this function execution gets over.
Okay.
And since this var of x is not inside any function, so we can access it globally.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, sir, can I ask? Sorry, please continue, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just trying to summarize this. That this is the difference between the execution of a program that you try to run either in a Node.js environment, or you can say script environment, or in the browser environment.
May I ask a question here?
Yeah, sure.
The part where you are explaining it will be in a wrapper. I mean, I understood that part. When you say call.a, call.a is not having any definitions. So this will refer to something in A which is not defined.
You are talking about this thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are saying that this, so you are concerned about call, or you are concerned about A object?
Both. Because if you say call, okay, this anywhere that this will refer to what is there in A, correct?
Yeah, that's true.
So, but there is nothing defined in A. So,
yeah, exactly. So this will refer to an object. See, this only refers to an object. Now that object may or may not have any properties at all. That depends.
Correct. So the arrow function, when we actually go for the x, this dot x and x. So I'm understanding it as it should be undefined, but am I mistaken is what I'm trying to figure out.
Remember, you are using assignment operator here. Okay. What happens in assignment operator is the data is flown from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. Is that correct?
Right. Right.
So the value of x is being copied to this dot x. Now this is referencing to this object, empty object. And when you are saying this dot x, then you are trying to access a property inside an empty object. So remember, in JavaScript, when you try to access a property that does not exist, then it gives you undefined result. But here, you are not trying to read it. You are trying to overwrite it. Awesome. So what will happen is a new property in X will get created. A object will get created, and the value will be whatever you will pass the value of X here.
Okay, so in this case, it is 20, so it will go back to 20.
Yeah, that's true. So a new property, or you can say a new property called X will be created inside this temporary object A, and its value will be initialized with 20.
So in Node.js, a wrapper is created, and in browser it is
in
not.
Script mode. In script mode.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Even in Node.js, what you can do is you can use the REPL environment, read, eval, print loop. That will work the same way as the browser console does.
So Node.js, okay, all right.
So the REPL environment of Node, all we need to do is type Node as a command and paste on that, right?
Yeah, Node, or if you want to be verbose, then you can say Node-I for interactive mode. Even Node will do.
Thanks a lot, sir.
So this whole function will be run inside a script, right?
Come again, please.
This function which is outside this code, so this will happen inside a script like this.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Someone was asking a question.
Yes,
sir. Okay. Let's maintain a queue.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sir, if you can please go to that what you're showing right now, sir, please, if it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, sir, you were saying that when we are running the code inside this some kind of editor, online editors and all that, it is wrapped inside a function. Now, it is like the code output is 5 and 10. What I observe is it is as if the object.func20 was not even there. The output is equivalent to had object not func20 not been there, else in the normal sense it would be printing 5 and 20. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Right. Now, the problem I'm unable to reconcile with is that if it's the constant A, if it's like wrapped inside this object, make up object constant A, and the context of x inside this constant is what? Like, shouldn't that be like this is a normal function, right, sir?
Mhm.
So the normal function will have x having the var x equal to 5 or not, sir? I'm just confused over here. I'm sorry, but if you can please clear this. But
So you are talking about the behavior of this statement, line number 3.
yes, I'm saying that the function in line number
Okay.
6, this dot x equal to x, and line 6 and
Okay.
7, that is.
Mhm.
So this the arrow function will take the context of the parent function, correct?
That's true.
So this parent function is now being called like this function, this constant a, right? This constant
Yeah.
a is now the obj here, right?
Mhm.
So
No. A
no.
is not obj here. A is just the value of this inside this function. So inside this function, the value of this is now A. This obj is another object now.
So can we say bind of a instead of call of a? So will that make more sense?
See, if you do bind, well, ultimately it is not going to invoke the function. So if you are saying bind here, then you will have to invoke it as well like this.
Okay.
Because bind returns a function. It does not invoke the function.
Okay.
Okay. So you can leave it as call or you can write it as, with bind using the syntax that I just wrote. Okay. So coming to your question, see, firstly, this variable that you are creating here, no matter even if you are using var as the keyword, you cannot expect this value to be available in the global object now because this variable is created inside a function.
Yes,
Remember, var have
understood.
function-based scope. Okay, they do not have global scope always, they have function-based scope. If you are creating it inside a function, it becomes local to that function. But if you create it outside a function, then it becomes global. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Now, coming on to your case, remember, in one of the sessions we discussed that every JavaScript program executes inside an execution context. The very first thing or the very first execution context that gets created is what? What is the name?
Global exec.
It is global execution context. Now, what will happen is when that new function or that extra function or that temporary function is created by the environment to wrap up your entire code within it. So an execution context for that function will also be created, right? So inside GEC, this means what? This means global, right?
Yes.
Now, here, when you are creating a temporary function, what is this? This is an empty object, a temporary object. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now your entire code is executing inside this temporary function. And what you do is you create that object within this particular function. And this object has that function, say func1. And then you are invoking this func1. Now, when you are invoking this func1, what will happen is a new execution context will be created here. New execution context, this will be created for func1. And if this is an arrow function, this will say whatever my parent says the value of this is, I will take the same value. Now this asks its parent. Who is the parent of this innermost box? This box, right?
GC.
No, not GEC.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, this is the where the value of this is defined as an empty object. So I can name it as, let's say, FE1, function execution context 1, and function execution context 2 here.
So what is that OBJ?
Sorry?
What is that OBJ?
OBJ is an object.
It is not empty.
Yeah, it's not empty. It is the object that is created here. This one.
Okay, this one. Okay.
Now, when you are invoking an arrow function, it says whatever my parent says the value of this to be taken as, I will take the same value. It refers to its parent. It goes to FE1. Tell me what is the value of this you are using. It says I'm using this temporary object or this empty object as my value of this. So this says, okay, I will also use this value as my this. And ultimately, this also refers to using this temporary object as its value of this. Are you getting it?
Yes, this I'm clear about this. But now in this case, when like A is global, right? That
no, A is not global. Why A is global?
No.
A is a local variable to this function execution context. Remember, this A you are talking about, this A, right?
Yes.
See, you don't even need to worry about this A because you will never do anything with it. You will never even know that what all properties actually exist inside this. May I know that in what context you are trying to find out that whether this variable A will be global or not?
What is it, sir?
I'm trying to understand that why do you want to know the nature, the scope of this variable A?
Oh, okay. This is a template code which is included by our Node.js, no, sir. So we cannot, I
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
access.
No, means I am just trying to understand the requirement, the objective, means what is
Sir,
the thinking behind
from
it.
my perspective, I think the requirement is ki like if we blindly run this code into a browser, it will throw an window object every time. So the node which is trying to say ki like no, you not throw global this, you throw a certain object which is the empty object so that you can run.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, ultimately, this is what you need to understand, that how the things are going behind the scenes. And this is telling you that what is happening behind the scenes. Now, the question is that why do you need to know what is the scope of this object? Are you getting my point? You need to understand how the code execution happens, what all things happen behind the scenes. And you also need to make sure that you understand that why this temporary object will become the value of this inside this fe1 and inside this fe2. That's all. So are you able to understand this now?
Yes.
So is this question clear to all, that why the same code is going to provide two different results if we execute this code on two different environments?
Sir, so for the exam, which of the answers would be selected as the right one?
In exam, certainly the environment will be mentioned if there is an ambiguity.
Okay, sir.
Sir, if
And sir,
not a arrow function.
If this would not have been an arrow function, in that case, obj x will be updated. If this would have been a normal function, then x would have remained the same. It would be 5 only, and obj.x will become 20.
Okay.
So in case of any ambiguity, we should go by the behavior of browser execution.
That's true. Well, such type of ambiguity is very unlikely, but anyways, if that happens, yes, you should prefer the browser environment. Yes.
Can you summarize this concept once again, small, just a few sentences, please?
Like, can you draw this diagram again? Sir? Then
the diagram is already here.
So if I understand right, the normal function, it refers to the object that is being calling the function. Whereas
exactly in normal function, this refers to the calling object.
And whereas in
whoever
arrow
is calling that function, this will get the value from that calling object. And in case of arrow function, they rely on the value of this of parent. This of parent
function.
EC. I'm writing EC. Execution context.
Okay, not the object.
Sorry, not the?
Not the object. It refers to the parent function.
Yeah, the parent execution context. Whatever the value of this in parent execution context is, it will take the same this value.
Okay.
So just like we talked about here, firstly a GEC gets created, then this wrapper gets created by the environment, and within that wrapper, your entire program is getting executed. So you create that obj object there, you create that a variable there, and then you try to execute some function from this obj object. And whenever you are trying to execute a function, a new execution context will get created. So this execution context will now get created inside FE1, not GEC. So the new execution context will have the parent FE1. And that is why the value of this will rely on this parent execution context in case of arrow function. If this would have been a normal function, then we don't even need to look at the parent execution context in that case.
Okay, if the arrow function is used and there is no reference to it in the first level of function, then will it go to the global?
If arrow function is used and there is no reference in the first level, I didn't understand.
FE1, whatever you had given, function execution 1, I think that is what you mean by that.
Here, yeah.
So if there is no reference in that context also.
So you are saying if the value of this is not defined here, is it?
Yeah.
No, it is not possible.
It will be? Okay.
This is always defined for every execution context.
Okay.
As I said here, GEC, no one is deciding that what is the value of this, but still it is getting that this here is representing the or referencing the global object. Here also, you didn't decide that this here inside this temporary function would get a temporary object. So environment is making sure.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
So if there is nothing defined, it will go into undefined mode. It will not go one level higher.
If nothing is defined,
I mean, like,
I'm telling you.
Yeah, his question is this dot x. So if x is not inside FE1, will it go to GEC for x?
No. See, this means an object. If you are not able to find that property inside that particular object, then you will not look around for that property in other objects, right? So here, this is an object, and this global is also an object. If you are not able to find a property here, then you will not look for that property in the global object. Because these two objects are completely unrelated. They don't have any correlation.
And also, sir, this FEC1, if this FEC1 is a normal function, then all the normal function have own this.
Yeah.
So ultimately, arrow function always inherit this. Okay.
Okay. So the person who was asking this question about this, is it clear?
Yeah.
Sir?
Thank you.
Yes.
Like, could you please go to that program is that online compiler?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So here, since this whatever we write is wrapped around a function and then that is called using some object with object. So this func which is there inside the obj object, since it is an arrow function, this refers to the parent execution context. This, right?
Here, this is referring to the parent execution context. That's true.
And the parent is the function which the online compiler gives, the outermost function.
Okay. So you are talking what is happening behind the scenes, or you are writing this code yourself?
No, so here only behind the scenes, whatever you told before. This function
behind the scenes, this function will be created by the environment.
Yes, sir.
Your
So
entire code will be wrapped inside the function by the environment.
Yes, sir. So this FEC1 which you have written, that is nothing but this anonymous function which you have written. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
So that is only FEC1.
That's true. This function is the temporary function that the environment has created. Yes.
Okay, sir. But in the case of browser, there is no function is wrapped around our code.
And this layer does not exist. This layer does not exist.
It directly refers to the global. Yeah.
That's true. And that is why in browser environment, we are able to add or access the property from the global object or modify the property of the global object, because this is referring to parent. Now, since this layer didn't exist, you are directly referring to this layer, GEC layer.
Okay, so in case of arrow function, the parent is the function inside which this arrow function is present.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, sir. And also in some questions I saw REPL environment. So, but the outputs are similar to a browser. So, what is the difference?
REPL is similar to browser. Yes, means if you try REPL means readable print loop. You will achieve this by running node in an interactive mode. So if you simply write the node command in the terminal, it will open that interactive shell for you. Just like you have interactive mode for Python as well, where you can execute one statement at a time. The same thing is available in Node.js.
Okay. So for this question, at the given that consider that this code is run in REPL environment, so then we should consider the output like for a browser, like what?
Yes, that's
okay. So if it's mentioned like that, then I think there is no ambiguity.
yeah, correct. So that's what I'm telling you, that in case such a question comes in the exam, then the environment would be specifically mentioned. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So for this question, as we have found out, the first two options, any of these could be correct. So if you select first or second, they both would be considered as correct answers.
So 20
I'm
comma
hoping
10, yeah, 20 comma 10 will be for the browser and 5 comma 10 will be for the script.
That's correct. Yeah.
So no, if you run this on a node, so the nature will be same, right? Like any online compiler will be same.
Yes, yes. Okay. Now, I hope this is clear to all, right? We shall move forward.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes, sir, please proceed.
Okay. So the next question says, which of the following statements is true regarding JavaScript language? JavaScript cannot be executed outside a browser. It is mandatory to put a semicolon. Both Google Chrome and Node.js use V8 JavaScript engine. That's correct.
Last two.
Fourth option says JavaScript can be executed without
last two are correct.
So
Last two.
JavaScript cannot be executed outside the browser. We have been executing it outside the browser only. So that means the first option is definitely incorrect. Second option says it is mandatory to put a semicolon. I don't think we have used semicolon here, though we have used, but it is not mandatory. Well, it is a good practice to put semicolons at the end of your statements in JavaScript, but it is not a mandation for you. So that's why this option becomes wrong. Third option says Google Chrome and Node.js, they use the same JavaScript engine. That's correct. And JavaScript can be executed without a document context. Document context comes into the picture when you execute JavaScript in browser. If you're executing it outside browser, then if you are able to execute it outside browser, then it can even run without document context. So this option is also correct.
So if you don't put semicolon, this compiler before running, it will put semicolon at the end of each line, right?
Yeah, it will put it, but you have to be careful about it, because sometimes when we try to write code inline, we kind of end up writing two statements in the same line. Okay, so if you try to write two statements in the same line and you don't have semicolons, then it creates a syntax error.
Okay, so the language needs semicolon at the end of each line.
Yeah, it will automatically insert it for you, but it will only do it at the end of each line. So if your line itself consists of two separate statements, then it would end up creating a syntax error. For example, you are writing these two statements, let's say where a equals to 10 and let b equals to 20. So if I try to move it in the same line, then there will be no problem because I am using semicolons correctly here. But if I do something like this, then it becomes a problem.
Got it. Yeah.
Sir, regarding the last option, does it anything to do with the document API or?
So it is talking about a scenario where JavaScript will be executed without having the access to the document APIs. Can you execute JavaScript without having the access to the document API?
Maybe in Node we can.
Yes, in Node you can execute it, because in Node document object is not available. Why? Because there is no UI that is associated with the program that you are writing. But in browser, there is a view, there is an entire view that you're even currently seeing on your screen. That is from a browser. Right? So that is why document exists in that place, in that environment. But if you move outside browser, then document context will not exist.
Okay.
So document context means like some HTML file.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the HTML elements.
Okay, sir.
Next question, we have to find out the true statements. The first option says all the variables declared using where keyword are automatically added as properties of the global object. Do you think this is true?
Correct, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir, because it can be inside a function.
Exactly. it does not mention anything about the scope of that variable, whether it is created inside a function or where. So we cannot say it is a correct statement. So this is a false one. Second option says the variables declared using the let keyword are never edited as properties of the global object. That's true.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Third option says the variables declared using where keyword can be redeclared in the same scope without causing any error. That's
Yes.
true as well.
That is not.
Next option says the variables declared using const keyword need not be initialized at the time of declaration.
False.
This is a wrong statement, because when you declare a variable as const, the
Sir,
behavior is that the value will never ever change. So it becomes mandatory for you to initialize it at the time of declaration itself.
sir,
The third is not right.
So third is wrong, no, sir, because you can only declare it in the same scope only where you're using var.
Well, if let or const, it will give error.
Yes, sir.
Can be redeclared in the same scope. Yeah, so it is a true statement, right? The third one.
No, sir. You can only use the variable. So the third option says the variables declared using the var keyword can be redeclared in the same scope without causing any error.
In the context of where,
Only with the var keyword only.
You're not with let.
Yes, yes, only where. In the context of where only.
But that is not given fully.
Yes, sir. So doesn't that isn't that the opposite of this? Like as in here it could mean that you have let and const also, which would then throw an error.
But here in this question, it is asking for where keyword, not a let and const.
So the context here itself revolves around where. So if you create a variable, let's say A, and if you redeclare it, would that work? Yes, of course, that would work with the case of where.
Yeah, that is an ambiguity. So that question is not clearly stating it.
Okay, I get your point. I understand that you are talking about the subsequent declarations. The subsequent declarations keyword is not mentioned, right?
Yeah, it can either be where, let, or const.
I get your point. Yeah, but this option is probably designed in such a way. Maybe I will have to check whether this option is given as correct one. Well, first option is wrong. Fourth is also wrong. So I believe that it must be a correct option because this is an MST. But I get your concern, and yeah, to some extent I agree to that as well. Maybe some amount of ambiguity is
ask
there.
one question? Const cannot be redeclared, right? In the context of the option 3, if instead of var we put const, it cannot be redeclared, correct? Or,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Even let cannot be redeclared.
Let cannot be done. Yes.
Let also cannot be done?
No.
But let can be reassigned. So,
yeah, reassigned, of course. Yeah. Okay. So I accept that there might be some ambiguity, and yeah, hopefully we'll try to resolve
so
it.
reinitialized and reassigned are same, right?
Reassigned and reinitialized. Well, reassigned is a scenario where you are only trying to update the existing value of a variable, whereas reinitialization will require you to even use that keyword as well, with which you want to declare a variable.
Okay, but okay, if you use let again, then I thought it is redeclaration.
Okay, so see.
So sir, reinitialization or redeclaration are both same, no sir?
Redeclaration and reinitialization need not be same because you can simply declare a variable. You need not assign it a value.
Okay, so redeclare means whenever we declare a variable, we need to give a value as well.
No, it's not mandatory. So let's say if you are doing this variable A equals to 10, variable A equals to 20, nothing will happen. There is no problem at all. But you can also write it this way as well.
Here we are only redeclaring.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the value of A in this case?
Sorry?
What is the value of A in this case? It's undefined?
What is the...
So
no,
second
if you
one
try
is
to access it
declaration,
even outside...
right?
Yeah. Yeah, here if you say console log, what?
It should give you 10.
So sir, these 1 and 2 line are both says as redeclaration.
Well, you would say that the second line is the redeclaration.
Second one is the redeclaration, sir.
Yes.
Second one is the V declaration, sir.
Yeah, correct.
So
So,
we
sir,
cannot change
so
to a let
what
in.
is this ambiguity in option 3, sir? I'm not able to understand, like, what is the ambiguity?
I'll come to that. So if you try to do it like this, then this will be a problem. It is saying that identifier A has already been declared. So
But,
that's
sir,
why.
here we are using a let keyword, na, sir?
Haha, yes. Okay,
So, sir,
so
in the option, it is mentioned only for where keyword.
okay. So let me tell you where the confusion is coming from. The option is saying that the variables declared using where keyword. Now, this is talking about the declaration, the first declaration, where keyword, can be redeclared in the same scope without causing any error. When you are saying redeclared, then whether the variable is being redeclared with the same keyword is the place where the confusion is coming.
So in that example, if we can just change the first thing to where a equal to 10.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And run this.
Yeah.
It is giving error.
Yeah. Yeah, means that's what I'm saying. Means I understand that what is the ambiguity here. I'm acknowledging it. Yeah.
So,
Anyways, I
sir,
hope you
so
have understood the
from
context that where variables can be redeclared with the same keyword and let and const cannot. Yeah. Please go ahead.
So, sir, if we want to remove this ambiguity, what should be the line which should be
So
mentioned
maybe we
here
can
in
just
order?
add here can be redeclared using the where keyword. That's all.
But sir, I believe, like in the question, if it is not explicitly mentioned, we should not assume anything else. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I am
yeah,
acknowledging that
Because,
there is
sir,
some level of
there should
ambiguity
not
here.
be any ambiguity. No, I think it should not be any ambiguity because it is not
same for me.
explicitly mentioned.
I don't think also.
Okay, so you are saying even this option in current state does not possess any ambiguity, is it?
Yes, sir, no ambiguity because it is not explicitly mentioned that we have to consider something else like let or const. If they mention explicitly, then
Well,
only we
yes,
should
that
assume. We
itself
should not
could,
assume until
yeah.
it is asked.
Okay. So that itself could serve as a place for ambiguity for a few people. I understand. I get both of your points, but from the academic point of view, in order to make options that are having no ambiguities at all, we probably have to give the entire context. Here, you are making an assumption that you have to use the same where keyword when you are redeclaring the variable, and I understand that this is a place which probably requires some improvement.
Okay, sir. No worries.
So does this
Got
mean
it,
if
sir.
a variable, let's say x has been declared with var, it can not be redeclared as let x?
Yeah, that's what we saw here. That's what
No,
we saw.
but it can be redeclared in a different scope, right? Not in the same scope.
Yes, that's true. Correct. That's correct. But we are talking about the same scope here. Anyways, let's not extend this discussion further. Let's move to the next question.
Yes, sir.
Consider the following view application with markup index.html and JavaScript file. Div id app1, id app2, then a paragraph, and div ends, another paragraph, div ends. JavaScript, we have two view objects. Fine. So what will be rendered by the browser in your opinion? What do you think?
So for the first one, we'll say the first message is Abhishek, and then the second message is, and I'll leave a blank because message 2 is not covered under, because it comes under the other div. Right. I am unable to explain properly, but I think you get my point.
I get the point. The
So,
answer is correct too. But yeah, please go ahead.
I think both will inherit Abhishek because in one lecture, sir told like if we assign a app in an outer div, then the inner div ignores the what is it called implementation.
So see, what happens is JavaScript execution happens line by line, right? That means the statement written first will be executed first. In the similar way, the view instance that you are creating first will be the first one that will make its effect. Now, what will happen is when this first view instance gets created, it proves its ownership over an element in your HTML with the ID app1. So, which is the element having ID app1? This one, right? This is the rootmost element here.
Yes, sir.
This is the
Outer D.
rootmost element, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
what will happen here is, since this is the rootmost element, what will it do is, it will try to hydrate all the placeholders that come under its scope. So whatever placeholders that exist inside the div with ID app1, they will try to get hydrated with the data properties defined inside this view instance. So there are message 1, there is message 2. Message 1 will get the value Abhishek, but message 2 will be hydrated with what? With a blank value. Because message 2 does not exist, and you will get a warning or error inside the console if you look at it inside the browser console or you try to run this application. And by the time this second view instance is created, even if you assume that this paragraph element would be under the scope of this app2 element, or app2 div element, even in that case, this would not be able to hydrate that, because by the time this instance will be created, a object or this first view instance has already proved its ownership, that all these things belong to me and I will hydrate them with whatever existing set of data I have.
So even if app1, app2 are interchanged in the HTML?
Even if app1 and app2 are?
Interchange, like where there is app1, if you make it app2.
Okay, so you are replacing these IDs, is it?
Yeah. Then also
in that case, you have to remember that JavaScript is going to take the precedence. Whichever object is created first, that will try to hydrate the values that come under its scope.
In
Because
that
there
case,
could be multiple scenarios that you can form.
Still, it will be Abhishek only, even if we interchange this.
Even if you change, okay, app2 goes up and app1 comes down, then this gets created, and app1 will still say Abhishek. And if you take app2 there, then in that case, this would start showing you Rajput as well. So there could be multiple scenarios. So all I'm saying is, what you need to take care is, JavaScript will take the precedence. Whichever object will be created first will take the ownership.
So I have two questions. Can I ask? Hello?
Yeah.
Ravi, one sec. Sorry, buddy. Sorry to interrupt you. Sir, I've got two questions. First of all, you said that JavaScript will control the entire thing, right? Now, if we had put the second message is within two sets of curly braces. The
Two
second
sets of
message
curly
is,
braces.
yeah, you have got only one set, right?
Two sets of curly braces, I didn't understand.
No, I mean, what I'm trying to say is message 2. If message 2 in curly braces were encapsulated within another set of curly braces, like we had done this in Flask, in MAD1, and we saw it work. Would that thing work over here? My second question is, if we, in the app.js, if we defined app2 first and then app1 next, then would this, keeping the index HTML code same, the first message show blank and the second message show Rajput?
I think to answer your second question, if you replace div IDs app2 and app1, in that case, the first message will show Abhishek as usual, and second message will show Rajput.
Why so? That was my question actually.
The simple reason is that if you are taking this app1, okay, fine.
So app2 will actually.
I'm keeping the index HTML code unchanged. I'm just changing how in app.js it's defined. I'm putting app2 first, and thereafter I'm defining app1.
Okay. Yeah, so as I told you, that you have to keep in mind that how is your JavaScript program getting executed, what is the sequence of that. Whichever is taking the precedence in terms of execution, whichever is getting executed first, will take the precedence and will hydrate all the values that come under its scope. Now, as I'm telling you, there could be hundreds of scenarios that you can form with such a short, simple enough example itself. But what you need to keep in your mind is that whichever is getting executed first will take the precedence.
Okay,
So if my
that
app
part,
to
that's
take,
it. Go on.
sorry, Ravi, please go on. Now you go on, please.
No, when you are saying it'll hydrate, okay, it'll hydrate all those areas where message 1 is defined as Abhishek. But
It will
message
hydrate
2,
all the areas where there are mistake expressions.
so if the value is not there, it will just put it as blank.
Yes.
Okay, that's the part I was trying to understand. Anirban, go on, please.
So same question for me. As you told, like in JavaScript, there's a sequence in which object precedence will come. So sir, in that case, my ID is F1. So all the view instances is hydrated from F1. Correct?
So here, app1 is binded with this object A, which is coincidentally getting created first here. So since app1 is a rootmost element, it will by default hydrate all the placeholders here. It will not leave anything.
Okay. Okay. And if sir, if we write,
See, that's what I'm saying. See, we are already running short of time. We have talked about what the basis of the solution should be. And as I'm telling you, there could be 100 scenarios that you can form with such a simple example itself. So instead of discussing all those 100 scenarios, let's just discuss the solution. I mean, what is the context that you need to keep in your mind while encountering such questions?
Sir, just one last question. When we're talking about which one is taking precedence, we're looking in JS. So if the first component is being formed first, it is the one which is taking precedence, right?
Yes,
irrespective of whatever is mentioned in the HTML.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and if we
the only way to avoid the blanks will be to denest them. Instead of doing nesting, if you remove them separately, it's going to be working normally. Message 1 and message 2 will all.
Come again, please.
If I actually remove the nesting, app2 in app1 or app1 in app2, the div blocks, I keep the div blocks separate, then it will work okay. It will take the message 1 and message. Okay, fine. Fair.
Yes.
Yeah. Prashant, go on, please.
So in the app.js, like if you just define object B before object A.
Again, as I told you, the thumb rule is JavaScript will take the precedence. Whichever object is being defined first, it will try to hydrate the HTML.
Yes, sir. Then message 1 will be blank and message 2 will be Rajput.
So you are defining app, okay, the object B before object A.
Yeah, yes.
So app2 will be hydrated. So it will simply remove that message 1, and then app1 will have message 2 as well. Okay, so yes, they both will be blank.
No, message 2 will be Rajput.
Message 2 is Rajput, no?
Which one? Message?
Message 1, sir, should be Abhishek.
Okay, message 1.
Okay, if we flip
the
if position of const A, const B definitions
before A, then both will be blank. See, this B object will try to hydrate all the elements of app2. In app2, you have only one thing, which is message 1, and it does not exist. It will be hydrated with blank. Then you move to the next thing. You move to the next object, which is A. A is taking ownership of app1 element. In app1 element, you have this placeholder, which asks for value message 2, which does not exist here.
So basically, sir, the message 1 will be Abhishek and message 2 will be nothing.
Both will be blank, both.
Okay, sir.
So can we run on the VS Code this?
Yeah, just
No,
because
sir, got it, sir.
it's
Got it,
outside the scope of app2.
Message 2 is outside the scope of app2.
Outside the scope of app2. See, app2 only has message 1. So even if you put app2, if you declare it first in the app.js, so it's going to only try to populate message 1, which is not going to get. So it will be blank.
Right.
And then the jurisdiction ends, so to say. And then the second message is outside app2. It also will print blank. It won't find it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so maybe we can run this code afterwards and check. Like, we can copy.
Yeah, maybe you can try this offline. See, as I'm telling you, for every question that we are discussing here, there are multiple scenarios that can be found, and it is practically not possible for us to
Yes.
discuss all those scenarios.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Please proceed.
Okay, so here the answer will be, given the current state,
Abhishek and blank.
It will be Abhishek and blank.
3, option 3.
Option 3. Now coming on to the next question here, we have two objects here. One is x1, another one is x2. What is happening here is you are trying to take the reference of add function. Add function is defined in both the objects, x1 as well as x2. You are trying to take the reference of x1's add function, and you are creating an alias for that with the name y. And after that, you are invoking that function y.call. So here y.call is equivalent to x1.add.call. I hope you are getting it. y.call is equivalent to x1.add.call.
Yes, sir.
Something
Yes,
that
sir.
we
Yes,
had
sir.
even
Yes,
discussed
sir.
in one of the questions before. Now, when you are saying, while calling this function y, which is actually this add function of x1, with the help of JavaScript call function, you are providing the first argument to be x2. Now, what is this x2 here?
Object, the context.
x2 will take the value of, the value of this inside the calling function will be replaced with the value of x2. So since this function is getting invoked, this reference that you are seeing here will be replaced with x2. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes.
we are passing another argument to this call, which is dia, and this dia will be copied to this variable called x here. So x will get the value dia. Now, if you need to find out that what will this function print, or what will this function instead return, whatever this function returns, this will be printed here. So this function returns this.b. This.b means x2.b. X2.b means welcome.
Welcome.
Plus a space here, plus the value of x. The value of x is dia. So welcome space dia is what will be the output of this question. Is it understood to all?
Yes, sir.
All right. In the next question, looks like a simple one. So again, we are creating an object x. We are creating an alias for a function called b with the name c. And then we are calling that function c by providing a different execution context x. Well, even if you would have called c as it is, then would have been the same. But anyways, you are passing the value of this to be x. So this will be replaced with x. What will happen is, does anyone know what is this 3 dot? What is this operator?
Spread.
It is a spread operator. What will it do is, it will
unpack the a variable.
Yeah. So basically the value of a, which happens to be an array, what will it do is it will take each and every element of that array and will create that as a separate element in the resulting arrays. So you are basically creating a new array where you want to take all the elements from array A and you want to add more elements to that, which are 6, 7, 8. So what will be the value for the new function, or new array that is getting written?
Option B.
Second option.
Second
option. Yes. If you would have not used this spread operator, then first would have been the correct answer. Well, there is one bracket, I guess, is missing. But yeah, if we include that bracket, then without spread operator, that would have been the answer.
So if it were dot 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 a 678, then it would be first option. That's what you mean to say?
No, in the initially the square bracket will come.
Dot dot dot. If you remove dot dot and you only write this dot a.
Okay.
Okay, consider the below code snippet and predict the output. We have this courses list, which is an array of objects. We have this get course, which is running a set timeout function. We have this add course function here, which is also running set timeout with an interval of 2000 milliseconds. You are invoking add course function with this object, and then you are calling get course function. You have to find out output. Okay, so add course is invoked. So we'll push it, and get course will. Fine. What do you think? What will be the output here?
So could you please show the code?
Yeah. So what is happening here is add course is running a set timeout, which means it is going to execute this code after waiting for 2 seconds. 2 seconds, sorry. What does it do? What operation does it perform? It pushes this new object that you are passing as parameter here into this courses list that is created on the top. Whereas this get course function, what does it do is it also uses set timeout, but it doesn't not specify the interval. That means by default it will be assumed to be close to nothing, close to zero. So if there are more set timeouts, then this set timeout will actually take the precedence or will be the one that will get executed before all others. And here what does it do is it iterates over the courses array, and it takes one element out and pushes it into a new array called all courses, and it finally prints it at the end. So add course is getting invoked first and then get course. What do you think then what will happen?
Mad1, Mad2 will be true.
Yes, before Mad3 will not be added.
Yes. I have a doubt.
Yes.
This would basically mean that after 2 seconds, Mad3 gets added into the courses list, right?
That's correct.
But then, shouldn't it be option 2?
No, it will not be option 2 because console dot. Okay, so it is asking you what will be logged onto the console as the output for this program, right?
Okay.
So when this console.log is executed, even though the program is still running because it is waiting for this set timeout to get over and do whatever operation it needs to perform, but once that operation is performed, there is no other console.log statement that will be executed post that.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, so for the sake of logs, you will only get 2 objects in the array, but yes, after a few seconds, after a couple of seconds, this new element will be added as well. So if you would have a console.log even after that, then you would have gotten 3 objects in the array.
Okay, sir.
Sir? No, I don't think so, sir. In that case, that would still be waiting, no? The console.log, it would still be waiting.
Now, why console.log will wait?
No, see, I'm telling, get course, like you said, that if you add another console.log after 3 will be, the third Mad3 will be printed. Is that what you said, sir?
No, I said, if you add console.log here after this course.push, then 3 objects will appear.
Oh, okay. Here, I get it. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought like you are trying to add a console.log after get course call.
No. Here, after waiting for this interval to get over and pushing the new object, the existing array. Yes.
Sir, in for each, what is that course index, comma index? I know course is like each element of that array. And index is like the position.
Index is the, you can say position of the array. The indexes in arrays begin from 0.
Okay, so it will be the Mad1 and index comma 0 the first.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, got it.
Sir, a quick question. Every time I see a for each that is coming in these PYQs, they are always in arrow function. So for each,
this is the best suited example for using arrow functions because you will not want to use arrow functions in other scenarios. Arrow functions are generally used in anonymous nature, where you want to create an anonymous function that will be used for that particular time as well, wherever you are trying to write it. And that function will not be utilized at any other place. So generally, when you create anonymous functions, people prefer creating those as arrow functions.
Okay, so thank you. And one more thing, it's always in this format, like element and then the index.
Yeah, correct. That's the construct, yes.
Okay.
Sir, if I don't specify this index, then
it's okay, fine.
Yeah. Sir, instead of 2000, if it is 0, then it will these all new course will come, sir. Mad3 will come, sir. Instead of 2000,
I didn't get your first statement. Sorry,
sir. Instead of set time out, you are set 2000 milliseconds. If you make it 0, then it will come, sir.
Then option 2 will
MAD3 will be appearing, sir.
Which value you are changing? Is this 2000 or you are adding something here?
No. Instead of 2000, I am making it 0.
Acha, you are making it 0.
Yeah.
Even in that case, the third option won't happen, or won't be the correct option, because in this set timeout, you are not providing any interval. So this will take the precedence over others.
Sorry, come again, please.
I'm
We are
saying
starting
that
with
this set
add
timeout does not mention any interval at all. So it will
Correct.
be considered a value close to 0. And if someone is specifying a value of 0, then this will be executed even before 0.
Okay. So if nothing is mentioned, then add course will add automatically. If you don't specify a value, add course will add, and then get course will give all three.
Yeah, then that's correct. That's true.
Okay. So if you mention a 0, then I mean it considers a number. Okay. That's crazy. Okay.
Okay. So the first option is correct here, right?
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you explain the flow of the code once, sir, in short?
Sorry?
Like
again,
the
please?
flow of the code. Can you explain the flow of the code once, sir, in short?
So what happens is all of these are functions. So functions are written, okay, that's fine. But functions will not be executed until and unless you explicitly invoke them. That is the place where the functions are getting invoked. Firstly, the add course function is invoked with some parameter here, with some object here. What does add course do is it creates a set timeout block and it says that I am telling you to do something. I'm telling you to push this new object into the courses array, but do it after waiting for 2000 milliseconds or after waiting for 2 seconds. And immediately after doing this, you invoke the get course function. Get course function, what does it do? It also says, I'm giving you some task, but you need to do it after some time. Now, what is the time? You are not specifying. So it will be close to immediately. It will be close to immediately, where what will it do is it will start iterating over this courses array that is defined on the top here, and it is going to keep pushing each element of that array into a new array that it has created here, and at the end it will simply print that array. Is it clear?
Okay, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Next
one
question.
question, sir. Mentioning 0 and not mentioning 0 are two different things, is it?
Yes. Okay. So if you have not mentioned anything, then that would take preference over 0.
Okay.
Why, sir?
Well, this is the construct of the language. If you are
Yes,
not
sir.
mentioning
Okay,
any
sir.
interval,
Got it,
you
sir.
expect. Well, generally, it is not a good practice at all if you are not mentioning the interval. Because if you are not mentioning the interval, you better take it as a synchronous code. Why do you want to make it asynchronous if you are not, willing to mention the interval?
Okay, sir. Got it.
But either way, it will still be a asynchronous function, right? I mean,
Yeah, that is, I'm telling you, this is going to be an asynchronous function. And if there is some synchronous code that is written, that would be executed first. This would be treated as asynchronous only. So I am telling you that if you want to skip this thing here, well, if you have a very specific use case where you want this to be immediately executed after executing your entire synchronous code, then probably I could understand that, yeah, you can skip putting the interval here. But even in that case, you can execute this particular function at the end of your code. So skipping the terminal is probably not considered a good practice.
Sir, so we kept 0 in both the set timeout. Then it would have first added the course and then printed all the 3.
That's true. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay, shall we move forward?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So next question says, how is v-show directive different from v-if? We have to choose all the correct statements here. So can anyone tell me what is the difference between the two?
So we show if a condition is false, then we show will hide the display. Like we show will hide the what is it? A tag. We show will hide the HTML tag from the and what is it? V-if. On the other hand, if the condition is failed, V-if will remove the altogether. Like V-if removes the tag from the HTML.
Okay, that's correct. So what happens is v-if and v-show, they both are used to control the visibility of your HTML elements, right? With the help of Vue.js as the framework. Now, there are two ways through which you can make your elements visible on the UI, or you can simply make them invisible. What are those two ways? One way is you can simply take the HTML element out of the DOM. Like you don't even render that HTML element on the DOM, so it will be invisible. And if you want it to be rendered, then you put that particular HTML element in the DOM so that it becomes visible. What is the other way? The other way is that you keep that particular HTML element in the DOM, but you can control the CSS property which defines whether the element would be visible or not. So v-if is the directive that either directly removes the HTML element from the DOM or inserts it, whereas v-show is the directive that relies on the CSS property. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
So can you repeat it?
Yeah. So v-if, what will it do is, in order to control the visibility, it will either insert the HTML element in the DOM, or if the visibility needs to be hidden, then it will take out that element from the DOM. That means that particular HTML element won't be even available in the DOM. Forget about seeing it in the UI. It is not even available in the HTML structure. But in v-show, what happens is the HTML structure will always have that particular HTML element. It's just that the CSS property of that particular HTML element will define whether it needs to be visible in the UI or not. But it will remain in the DOM.
Okay, sir.
Sir,
just give me a minute. Okay. So see, this is an HTML. Now suppose you want to control the visibility of this div here. If you are using v-if and you want to hide this particular div, then what will happen is this div will go away from this elements tab. This will not become visible here. And whenever the condition becomes true, whenever this needs to be rendered, this div will be inserted in this particular elements tab. But what is happening in v-show is this div is not going anywhere in any scenario. Only the CSS property of this div will define whether it will be visible in the UI or not. It will always be visible in the elements tab. Yeah,
so,
now tell me.
in v-show, we are always the div tag will be rendered. So that is why v-show has a higher rendering cost over v-if.
Well, I would say that v-if has more, or v-if is probably more costly than v-show, because every time you have to take an element out, you have to insert a new element. That is a costly operation.
That is toggle cost.
Yeah, that's correct.
So rendering cost means cost to put that.
Rendering, yeah, then okay, I get it. Yeah, fine. Yes. Okay, so this is the difference between v-if and v-show. One relies on CSS property, whereas other simply deletes and inserts the HTML element on the. Okay. Now, what do you think? Which all options are correct here?
Sir, B and C.
So 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
B and C would be correct.
There is no difference between the two. It is definitely false. v-show directive is rendered in the DOM even if the expression does not evaluate to true. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's true. v-show should be preferred when the DOM needs to be updated frequently. What do you think?
True.
Yes.
Correct.
We just discussed the cost. So the cost factor. So yeah, it should be preferred over v-if. And yeah, these two are the correct options. Is it clear to all?
Yes, sir.
Sir, the third option is something to do with the cost, right? So I didn't get the cost thing. Why is it like for that rendering?
So think
and
about it.
programming?
Think about it. You have this DOM. You have a very complex DOM here, right? Now, based on a condition, you are deleting this div element from the DOM and you are inserting this div element in the DOM repeatedly, or you can say frequently. Probably on an interval of 2 seconds, you are taking it out. After 2 seconds, you are bringing it again. So wouldn't that be better if you just change the CSS property of this HTML element? Because the cost, I'm talking in terms of optimization, how fast can you make? If you are trying to insert or delete a particular HTML element from the DOM again and again, instead of that, you can simply control the CSS property. That would be more fast. That would be faster. Are you getting it?
Okay.
So see, you have a bucket. You are putting down some objects into that bucket. One thing is that you can, just control the visibility of that object by setting a property of that object itself, or one thing is whenever you need to, toggle the visibility, you will have to take that object out, you will have to put it again, you will have to take it out. Means this cycle will continue, and this will incrementally increase the cost.
Okay, sir.
Sir, can we also use v if we want to update frequently? If we use if we give the condition equals to true.
See, we are talking about which one is better. You can definitely use both of them. There is no harm in using any of these, or you won't get any error if you try to use v for such scenarios. We are talking about how can you make your code more optimized, how can you optimize your web application.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So is there a
coming on to
concept
the
of
next
toggle
question.
cost? Sorry, sir. Is there a concept of toggle cost or something for v show and vf?
Yeah, see, toggle cost is that when you are, okay, as someone already mentioned, that toggle cost comes into the picture when you are only controlling the visibility with the help of CSS property. It is already present in the DOM. You are switching it, whether this needs to be visible or whether this needs to be hidden. That is the scenario where the toggle cost comes into the picture.
So the toggle cost will be higher for v show.
Toggle cost is when you are taking the element out and inserting it again. That will be the rendering cost, the one that I previously mentioned.
Okay, so v show will have a higher rendering cost.
Yes.
And so which one will have a higher toggle cost, sir?
The other one. One will have one property higher, one cost higher, the other one less.
Okay, so I get it. Now its VF will have a higher toggle cost. Sorry.
Yes.
Which one in reality is more expensive?
Depends on the
Toggle
use case.
cost or
If you're
rendering
talking
cost?
about frequent updations, then you should go with vshow.
Okay.
Sir, can you please explain can you please give the answer in the chat box question mentioned in the chat?
Can you please come to the chat after we finish all this? As
Okay.
I think we are
No
already
worries.
30 minutes over the time, and we are still yet
But
to
sir,
finish.
that question is related. That's why.
vshow directive as higher rendering cost. Just allow me a moment, please.
There are 7. Sorry, 1 and 4.
Hello, is anybody speaking?
I don't think sir is speaking.
I think sir.
Okay. Sorry, I thought there was something wrong with my audio.
I think, sir, he would have taken break.
Okay.
I think.
Prashant, I think there's a difference between v-show and if you're talking between v-if and v-else.
So is there v show and v else also?
Yeah, so the thing is, if I'm right, is that when you basically use v-show if you're frequently hiding or displaying a particular element. So it only changes the display property of CSS. V-if and v-else, you'll basically use it when the element should not exist in the DOM.
So why,
So
sir, it
v-show
should not
will
exist in the DOM?
no v-if and v-else, you basically use it most likely when an element should not exist in the DOM, when it is not visible, like for performance or things like that, is where you would use v-if or v-else. v-show is basically that even if it is present in the DOM, you change the CSS to display it or not.
Okay, so yeah, this I understood. So there is no v show and v else, right?
Yeah, there is a little difference. I think maybe Sir is a better person to explain it properly. But yeah, there is a little difference between VF, VLs, and VShow.
But if goes with else, right? It doesn't go with show.
Yeah, VF and VLs go together.
Sorry, we just
VShow
got
goes
an important
separately.
call.
Sir, what is rendering cost and what is toggle cost?
Okay, yeah. So all right. So see, toggle cost will come into the picture. Toggle cost will come into the picture when you are making changes in the DOM in terms of insertion and deletion. Insertion and deletion, whereas rendering cost will be a concern when you are saying that the element will always persist in the DOM. The element is not going away, but you are only changing the visibility of element. Okay. Now, based on these 2 points, what do you think? What v-if should have as higher one? Should it have? Sorry, it should be toggle. Fine. So as we have discussed that v-if is going to either insert or remove the element from the DOM. So which cost do you think v-if is going to incur more?
Toggle.
So v-if is going to incur toggle cost more, and it will have less rendering cost.
Because we don't have to display the entire content, even if the condition.
If the condition is false, you don't have to display it at all. The element does not exist at all. But talking about v-show, in v-show, what happens? The element always exists in the DOM, right? So in that case, the initial rendering cost will definitely be higher as compared to v-if, because in v-if, if the condition is false, the element won't be rendered at all. Whereas in v-show, doesn't matter whether the condition is false or true, the element has to come into the DOM. Now, it is a matter of whether the value is true or false. Depending upon that, you will go and talk about toggle cost. In v-show, initial rendering cost is more because element has to be rendered no matter what. So, did you get it?
Yes, sir. Which is more costlier, sir? Toggle or rendering?
Well, as I said, it depends on the use case. So if we are specifically talking about frequent updates, then you would like to go with v-show, and you would probably take some pain of getting some higher rendering cost. And yeah, you should be okay with that. For frequent updates, I'm telling. Okay, because see, it is sometimes Sometimes it might be okay that if your website probably takes some extra time initially, well, this might be a subjective thing. Maybe some people might have a different opinion. So you can probably spend some extra time loading the website, and after that, if you're making some changes, I expect the changes to be instant. Right? In that scenario, then yes, you would go with vShow.
Okay, so the rendering cost means we have to share this HTML from the server to the client. So this one extra line or something.
Rendering cost is the browser rendering cost. That means there is an HTML element, and browser has to render it. Browser has to interpret every HTML element and then show the corresponding UI for that.
Okay, so got it. Okay, it is not the transmission cost.
Yeah, that is a different thing. So, all right. So vIf is going to have higher toggle cost and low rendering cost, whereas vShow is going to have low toggle cost and high rendering cost. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sir, also can we use vIf, vElse together? Can we use vShow, vElse?
See, if as you know that this is the construct of programming and decision making, that if can always be used with else, but for vShow there is nothing like that.
Okay.
So what you will have to do in that case is, if you want to simulate that scenario with the help of vShow, then you would have to write code like, for one element you are saying vShow equals to, let's say, property called prop, and then in other element that you want to show, if this property is wrong, you would say not prop, something like that.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So coming to the next question, which of the following statements is correct about v-cloak directive? How many of you have heard about v-cloak before?
No.
Sir, I don't think they covered this, right?
What is
okay,
v-cloak?
Is there something of that sort?
Okay, let me tell you. What happens is, so see, when you are writing a view component, when you are writing a view app, then you do use a lot of Mustack expressions there, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, and these Mustack expressions actually get hydrated with the actual value that they are supposed to get. Now,
yes.
What happens is, sometimes maybe it might not be noticeable to the human eyes. When the website is getting loaded for the first time, you might see these Mustack expressions as it is. Let's say if there is a variable called ABC here, you might see this thing as it is coming onto the UI of the browser. If it is taking some time to hydrate or to load the view application in actual. So in order to get rid of this scenario, or in order to improve your application so that your end user does not face a situation where he or she is seeing this type of thing, right? So in that case, what you do is, wherever you are using these Mustack expressions, what you do is you attach a v-cloak directive with them. The property or the behavior of v-cloak directive is that it only stays with the element till the time it is not mounted. As soon as this value gets hydrated, this v-cloak attribute or this directive will automatically go away from the HTML element. So try to understand it. It will only stay with the element by the time it is getting mounted. As soon as it gets mounted, this v-cloak directive will automatically go away from that HTML element. It will automatically be removed. Are you getting it?
Sir, what is the purpose there then?
The purpose is that if you have some HTML elements where some Mustack expressions are being used, you will put v-cloak with those with those elements, and using this v-cloak as a property in CSS, you would define some CSS. You can define some CSS and you can say display or visibility. You can control that I don't want these things to be visible. If any element has this attribute v-cloak, I don't want that element to be visible in the UI. And as you know, that as soon as that element is ready to be shown on the UI, this attribute will automatically be removed from that element, and this CSS will not apply. Are you getting it?
Okay,
So,
sir.
sir, we can manipulate this v-cloak CSS through our view application, like view instance.
We can manipulate. I didn't get it.
Like I want like my Mustang expression only render when my element is mounted.
Yes. For that
So for
specific
that,
scenario, we use v-cloak.
okay.
So this is the
So
behavior of
v-clock
v-clock,
is
and
a
this is why we use it.
CSS stack. So sir,
Yeah. So
v-clock
this
is a
v-cloak
CSS
needs to
stack.
be clubbed with CSS in order to achieve the objective that we are aiming towards.
Okay.
Once again, okay, v-cloak actually does not, like it cloaks the expression till it gets mounted.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yes, exactly.
So I know you gave an explanation as to what the use is, but I'm not really clear on that one. Can you just elaborate once again? What
Sir,
advantage do we gain by that?
Sir, what is mounted, sir? Mounted means?
Mounted means when it is ready to be shown on the UI. Okay. Yeah. Coming to your question. So let's talk about the problem which we are trying to solve with the help of v-cloak. The problem is when you have a lot of Mustang expressions in your view, sometimes it may happen that it may take some extra milliseconds or probably some seconds as well, maybe in some rarest of scenarios, where these Mustang expressions are directly visible on the UI to your end users of the application. So let's say you have written your application in Vue, you have deployed it, and you have used a lot of Mustang expressions, and there's a possibility for a fraction of seconds these Mustang expressions are visible to the end users who are using your application. Now, if you want to improve their experience, you don't want this information to be shown, because it's better that you don't show anything instead of showing such thing.
Clear. Thank you.
Well, given that this is the purpose, this is the behavior of v-cloak directive in Vue, let's see which all of the options are correct here. So the v-cloak directive remains on the element till the associated component instance is ready. Well, this is what the behavior of v-cloak is. Second option says it can be combined with CSS to help hide uncompiled Mustang binding until the component instance is ready. This is the purpose of using v-cloak. And v-cloak is not a directive. That is wrong. So both A and B is going to be the correct answer. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next question. Which of the following could be considered an ephemeral state? Ephemeral or UI state, or you can say temporary state. So out of the given options here, what do you think? Which one is the temporary state?
Option
D.
Temporary state means which is expected to go away probably after some time, probably if you refresh the page. Yeah, for these scenarios.
So
B would be
option D,
correct.
sir. Sir, option D.
No, B.
Well, user database of NPTEL, of course, that is not something which
State
you would want to
system
lose
state.
control over if you are the owner. So, yeah, user database can be considered as an example of system state. List of emails selective for archiving in Gmail.
This is option.
So let's say you open your inbox, you select some emails. Now, first thing is the question is mentioning, the option is mentioning that you are selecting those emails for archiving. But does the Gmail know that you are selecting those emails for archiving? Maybe the user, if you want to delete multiple mails, then also you will do a lot of selection. Gmail doesn't know that you are selecting these emails for deleting, for archiving or something, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So when you select some emails from your inbox and you refresh that page, do you expect your selected mails to still persist with you?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. So this type of data is kind of temporary data that will go away as soon as you refresh the page, because this is only available at the time you are making those changes. As soon as you refresh your session, everything will be lost. So list of emails selected for archiving in Gmail is an example of a temporary UI or ephemeral state. Google search index. What do you think about Google search index?
So they are all
system state.
It's
No, that is
system.
not. That is application state, I think.
No, it's system state. Google search index is going to remain same for me, for you, for everyone else. Search index is same for everyone.
So what is search
But
index?
it depends on person to person, sir.
No, we are talking about Google search index. We are not talking about we are not talking about because of the application that we use. See, Google is a search engine. Don't try to relate it with the Chrome, which is a browser.
Okay, sir.
So what is the search index in Google search?
The search index is that how your queries are actually being searched. Let's say when you type anything, then how the Google get you the relevant results for that.
Okay, like the backend.
Yeah, kind of an algo, yes. Now, talking about the last option, user shopping cart content on Amazon.in. What do you think?
Application state.
Application.
Now, this is an application state because even if you go away for some time, this information will always stay with your account. Even if you refresh your page, this information is not going to go away. So this is an example of application state. So the second option qualifies to be an example of ephemeral state here.
Sorry to take you back. What did you say was Google search index?
I said Google search index will be a part of system state.
Okay, thank you.
So Google search history means it will be applications.
Search history, yeah, it will be specific to a user. Yes, then you can say it is application state. When you click the reply button in Discourse, so I'm hoping that all of you must have used Discourse at least once, in this program, and type part of an answer and then reload the page, assuming the content you typed will be lost. What will be the type of state information does this option type?
Ephemeral.
Okay. Yeah, so this is going to be ephemeral state because the question explicitly says that you have to assume that the content that you are typing will be lost. And if the content is getting lost when you are reloading the page, then of course it is not kind of a persistent state.
It will be made as a draft, right?
See, if it is made as a draft, then you you can say that it qualifies to be an application state, but this question specifically says that the content you typed will be lost. So you have no access to that, even not in draft. No means you don't have any way to access that.
Okay.
Any changes to application level state such as user preferences will require. Any changes to application level state such as user preferences will always require updates in the server.
False.
Is this statement true or false?
False.
Changes to application level state such as user preferences will always require updates in the server. What do you think?
True, sir, from me.
Okay, why do you think false?
Sir, false because sometimes the user preferences and stuff can be stored in the form of sessions and cookies. So if you restore, you still have the same data available. You don't always require. You don't always have to update it.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. So the correct answer to this question is going to be always require. So yes, then you are correct. The answer is false here, because if you are saying always here, this always is what is making it incorrect. Because as you rightly mentioned that some information can be saved on the session as well, or session means you can save it on the user device as well.
Yes, sir.
Like, there is no need to communicate that to your remote server. Like for example, you can save some preferences like which theme I would like to browse a particular website in. I would prefer dark theme, light theme. It depends on user's preference, and that can be stored as part of local storage because this is probably not relevant information to be stored on server.
So the answer is false.
Yeah, the answer is false here.
So
because I could browse the same website in a different device in a different theme. Let's say on laptop, I would prefer to browse a certain website in dark theme. The same website I would like to browse in light theme in my mobile phone. So that is why it does not make sense to probably store such type of information on remote server. Again, this is very subjective and depends on the use case. Yes.
So, but some changes to the application state will require changes in the server.
Require, but it is saying always.
So if the always
word
was not there, then
yes, it is always, which is making the option false is correct here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, in the question number 13, if the message is not lost, and then it is application state or system state? I hope.
No, it is not system state. See, system state is a very big picture. System state means that, let's say, if you want to reconstruct the entire system once again, then you require that system state.
Okay.
So system state it also comes like reply and send it on the discourse. Then it is now
No,
under.
that no, that won't qualify alone as a system state. See, all of these will create an hierarchy. Let's say system state will come, then application state will become a part of the system state. But an application state does not qualify to be system state.
मतलब like ठीक है.
Yeah, tell me.
No, I can ask after this. We can proceed.
Okay, fine. So we have to consider this markup and JavaScript file for a Vue application here. For this app, the browser will render text apple sum number 1, pineapple sum number 2, and a button with text distribute fruit. If a user clicks on the button distribute fruit 3 times, what will be the value of sum number 1 and sum number 2? Let's look at it. There is this apple, there is this pineapple. Okay, so apple will come because of this apple component, pineapple will come because of this pineapple component. And this sum number is actually apple count and pineapple count. Apple count and pineapple count. And okay, these are computed properties. So we have to find out what happens. Okay, how many times the user is clicking? The user is clicking 3 times. So there is this button that you are clicking 3 times. So when you click this button 3 times, what you are doing is for each click, you are incrementing the value of total fruits by 11. What is the initial value of total fruits? It is 10. For each click, you are incrementing the total fruits value by 11. So if you click thrice, what will be the new value of total fruits?
41.
11 times 3, 33. 43 plus 10.
43.
Fine. Now, let's see what apple count and pineapple count are going to yield with a value of 43 in total fruits. So it says simply divide total fruits by 2. So 43 by 2 will be 21 point something, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And you have to take a floor value of that. So what will be floor value of 21 point something? It will be 21.
21.
So apple count or sum number 1 value is going to be here. Sum number 1 value is going to be 21. But let's look at pineapple count. Pineapple count says you have to check whether the current value of total fruits is completely divisible by 0. 43 is not completely divisible by 0. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the second case will happen here, will be executed. And it says total fruits by 2, which is again 21, since we are taking the floor value, and 21 plus 1. So it becomes 22.
22.
So the pineapple count or some number, but 2 value will be 22. So 21 and 22 will be the answer.
Okay, sir.
I hope it is clear to all.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you please scroll up a bit?
Yes.
Yeah, that part. So can you just explain props, like how is props operating here? We have like in the const apple and const pineapple. And by the way, sir, these are like components, right? Locally registered or like globally? How do you recognize this?
This is the registration part.
So these are locally registered components?
Yeah, locally registered. Yes.
Because they're coming under this new view, is it?
Because they're coming under new view. I didn't get it.
No, we are not defining these. This constant pineapple and const apple are like defined outside this new view, but they are registered. Sir, is this globally registered or locally registered? This is what I wanted to clear up.
Okay, so let me get some more clarity over here. What do you understand by global registration and local registration?
When a component is defined outside this new view, it's a global registration. Anything else is local registration, which I understand, which I got. But here there's a components which is like mentioned in new view, and then it is also defined outside.
Okay. So see, there are 2 ways for now. If I talk about on a very top level, there are 2 ways for you to create components or register components. One is either you can use the view.component method. That is going to create the global components, and global components means you will be able to register them or use them at any place in your entire Vue application. I'm telling about entire Vue application. Now, talking about these two components, apple and pineapple. Now, imagine a situation where your view application is constructed in such a hierarchy where there are multiple components involved. Let's say there is a hierarchy where you have component, let's say you have first view application. In this view application, you are using a component called comp A. This comp A is using two components as its children, comp B and comp C. This comp B in turn is using, say, comp D and comp E. And this in turn is using comp F. Now, global registration means if you are defining it using view.component, you're defining your component like this, or you are registering your component at this level itself. That means if you are registering your components within the view instance itself, in that case, your components are global. That means you will be able to use that component in component A, B, D, E, C, F. You will be able to use that component at any place in your entire view application. But if you have created your components like const, like the way it is being created in that particular question, and you are not registering it here, you are not registering it inside the view instance, then you will not be able to use that component in any of the components that you are seeing here. If you want to use that component, you will have to register that particular component by going into the component you want to use it in. So let's say if you want to use it here, then you will have to register it here. If you want to use it here, then you will have to register it here. Are you getting my point?
Yeah,
Okay,
what I'm getting is that if like I define it like you said in component A, then I won't be able to use it in B, C, D, E, or F.
Then you won't be able to
use that component within the other components like B, C, D, E, or F if I define it in component A locally. Or
so if you're defining it in component A, these are the children. So they will by default have the access to it.
Okay.
See, if you are creating objects, if you're creating your components in terms of objects like this is being done here, then it becomes your responsibility to register those components wherever you want to use them. And if you want your components to be global, then either you can create your components using view.component or you can register them inside your view instance. Okay?
Sir, in the diagram.
Yes.
So if you have registered this component D inside component B locally, then this component D cannot be called outside in your component A or somewhere in the app.
Which component you have registered where?
Component E registered inside component B.
Okay.
Then this component E cannot be accessed outside.
Yes.
In component
correct.
A.
Yes, correct.
Okay, from the top it can be accessed to the children, but from the child to the parent it is not.
Yes, correct. Okay, let's quickly finish then. So last question is, which of the following statements is or false regarding JavaScript language? So JavaScript is a dynamically typed language unlike C++ or Java. What do you say?
True, sir.
True, sir.
True statement. Dynamically, okay, I'm hoping that all of you understand what is dynamically typed and static
No,
type.
could you please explain?
Okay. So static and dynamically typed languages. In statically typed, what happens is whenever you create variables, you will have to give prior information to the compiler that what is going to be the data type of the variables that you want to work with. Whereas in dynamically typed languages, you are not required to give prior information about the data type of the variable because it can be changed at runtime. In JavaScript, what happens is, let's say you create a variable A, you are keeping a value of 10 there. Later, you can keep a value of ABC, a string there. Later, you can even keep a function in this variable A. So the data type of the variables are not fixed. You don't need to worry about the data type. But in statically typed languages, where the data type is required, you will have to mention the data type for every variable, and that variable can only hold that type of data which you have declared it with. It cannot hold any other type of data. So let's say talk about C, C++, Java, where you would typically create variables like int a equals to 10. Now this a cannot hold string, this a cannot hold float, double, etc. So that is why JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. A JavaScript program execution always starts from the main function.
False.
That is a false statement that happens in other languages like C, C++, Java. Third option says is JavaScript program must have a function named with the main with the name main defined.
False.
This is also not true. And JavaScript is also an object-oriented programming language.
Yes.
Yes. Though it uses prototype-based inheritance, but yes, it exists.
One question: if it does not start from main, where does it start from? Basically from the app.js.
It happens line by line. The first line of your program is the starting point.
Okay, that way. Sorry, misunderstood.
So there is no concept of main itself in JavaScript.
Yes, correct.
Sir, if you can kindly go back to the previous question, please.
Which one? 15?
Previous question. Yeah, that apples and pineapples.
Yeah.
Sir, if you can just briefly explain what there was this props. What is this props?
Okay. So again, you have to understand the view constructs in order to understand what props are. As I told you that a view application can be a hierarchy of components. Firstly, you have a view component, then you have a component A, then you have a component B, and it can be as much complex hierarchy as you can think of. Okay. Now, let's say you have some data. Each and every component and even the view instance will have its own data. Right? You would want to define some data here, some data here, some data here, and each component can keep a copy of or define a set of data that this component wants to make use of. But there are scenarios where one component requires the access of data from some other component. Let's say this component requires data from component A or from view. Then how do you make that data available to component B?
Through props.
The answer is props. What you do is you pass that information whenever you are rendering this component as a prop. So this is what is happening here. You are rendering this component apple and you are saying call an apple count. So this is called one-way data binding. You are creating a new prop variable inside this apple component whose value is going to be apple count from the view instance. So view instance defines the apple count to be something. Like it can be 0, it can be 1, 2. It will be some valid value. That's all we are saying. So when you want to share this apple count with the apple component, because apple does not have the variable which tells you about apple count. So what you are doing is you are saying that this apple count is an information that will be sent from the parent to the child. So this apple, being a child, will receive this information from the parent. And this is the syntax, how you do it. You define the prop name like this on the left-hand side. The right-hand side is the variable name in your view. And then when you create your component, you will have to accept these exact variables as your prop. And now you will be able to use them as normal variables in your component. Is it understood?
Okay, so yeah, I think I'm getting it. So the apple count basically under the div equal to app, we're saying we're defining the apple tag, the apple, and we are like binding it. Apple count is apple underscore count is basically apple count is from the main view JS. Apple count variable. Then in the camel case, apple count is from the main view JS. And apple underscore count is what is the variable that we are putting it in the template, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
that has to be since it's the child, it's a part of the child. So it has to be assigned through the binding. We bind, right? That is what is happening here.
Yeah,
because we
correct.
are passing the data from the parent to this child, right?
Child, apple or pineapple, yes.
Okay.
So colon apple count means it is v-bind, right? Like one-way data binding. That means
This is shorthand for v-bind.
from the component, the data will be accessed in the HTML.
Yes.
Okay, sir. And Like instead of this, can we use like without v-bind also, using just the data property of the components?
Come again, please.
No, sir. Here, instead of using v-bind, can we use work with only the data property? Like inside Apple, we can make a data.
You can. But the thing is that the property that you want to access, the data that you want to access, if it is directly available to Apple, if Apple is defining it, then of course you don't need it as a prop. But the thing is that that data is not something that Apple is defining, because it is probable that the same data is being accessed by some other components as well. So that is why you cannot keep that data in a single component. You would keep that data at a centralized place and you would pass it as a prop to every other component. Later down the line, we will see a store coming into the picture. Well, that's something that we will study later in week 6 or 7, I guess.
Okay, sir. So, okay, the v-bind means from the JavaScript it takes to the HTML. So this Apple count is referring from where? But where, sir? But because in Apple also the props we are taking
Apple count is taking the value of this Apple count variable. This needs to be a variable or a computed property in your current component. What is the current component? The current component is the view app itself, because you are currently in HTML. And if you look at your view instance, then these properties are defined as computed properties, Apple count and pineapple count.
Okay,
this is
so
the place where those values are coming from.
Yeah, I got this one-way binding, but with the props, like we are accessing and like changing.
No,
what?
props are meant for read-only purpose. You are not allowed to change them.
So these props are reading from the HTML.
Props are reading from that. Yes. So whenever you want to call that component, then you will have to pass the prop. Now, this need not be HTML always. Let's say you are trying to render this component in another component. Let's say you have this hierarchy. Then when you will write the template property for component A, in that place also, you can write comp B. It is not always in HTML, but you can say always in template, HTML template.
Okay, so there is some kind of two-way binding also, because of the props, the Apple component is able to access the Apple count from the HTML. And also because of v-bind, the HTML is able to get access to the Apple count, pineapple count variables.
No. See, v-bind is simple one-way data binding. What you are doing is you are simply you are not listening for that once again. You are just passing the value. You are not listening whether that value is going to change or not. If you are listening for that value, then you would say it would kind of become some two-way data binding where you are trying to pass down the value and even listening for updates. But here you are only using it for read-only purpose. So this is one-way data binding.
I thought we are listening using that props keyword.
No. This is just passing the value. So whatever the value, the current value of Apple count will be, it will be given to this component. That's all.
Okay.
Sir, what is distribute fruit? Where it is linked, sir?
What is?
Distribute fruit.
Here.
Yes, sir. But it is not linked in this file, JS file.
No, this is simple HTML element, simple HTML button element.
So when you click the button, it will be showing.
If you click the button, then whatever you have written as the logic here, execute.
So it will be showing total fruits or distribute fruit.
The button in turn will only trigger the value change of this particular variable. That is this. That is this total fruits. Now, what will happen after changing the total fruits is a different. This button will only change that value. That's all.
Fine.
Sir.
Yes.
Just a small doubt, sir. Could you please go to the question 13?
Yes.
Sir, this one. Sir, what if suppose if the user is replying, if the user clicking on this reply button, and after that it will type the message and send it on the Discord. So, sir, this will system state category. This will come under the system state category, no, sir?
No. This will just be a application state. See, system state can be understood as something through which you can reconstruct the system back. Let's say you lose the access to the discourse. Now, based on the reply that you sent, would you be able to reconstruct the entire discourse back? Of course not, right?
No, sir.
You need the entire information of the system. You need the entire platform information.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so probably
Sir,
we have
Can we
already
go
sir, I
stretched
have
a
a
lot of
question
time.
on
once again?
prototype. If you can,
Sorry?
I have a previous year question on prototype. If I can share my screen.
Uh, can you paste the question in the chat?
Let me try, sir.
In the meantime, can you go to question 15 that you were just discussing?
15. Yeah.
Yeah, 15. See, here we have a template, Apple and Apple count. Now there is something called a prop. Prop is again Apple underscore count. Okay, so
Yes.
prop is also saying Apple underscore count.
Hmm.
So the template is what is going to be used to display the data in the div. Am I correct
Yes.
or am I mistaken?
Yes.
Okay. Now Apple count is going to populate that data in this template, or how is that? That is the part I was
Apple
missing in the
count.
entire discussion.
See, what is happening is you are using a mustache expression here. And when you are
Correct.
using a mustache expression, you are expecting this value to come from
To come
somewhere.
from somewhere. Correct. That also
And
understood.
when you
Yeah.
define this value in the prop, so you expect this value to come from some parent component. So whatever
Okay.
value that you will pass, that will automatically come here, hydrate here.
Okay. Okay. Now, what is the colon Apple underscore count? I mean, like when I see when I'm talking
See,
about the
that is the variable.
index.html,
What is happening
that's
is
a
when you want to import some data from some other component, it is possible that the name of that particular data is X in some component. But when you want to import it in some other component, you want to rename it with B. So that is this thing. You
repeat that
are
part,
just
please.
defining
Repeat
the
that,
name
please.
of the variable with which you are accessing this data in that component. That's all.
Okay. So the variable name is Apple count or Apple underscore count?
Apple underscore count is the variable name.
Okay.
Apple count is the value that is coming from the view
That is
instances.
coming from the method or computed
Computer property.
computer property. Okay. All right. Thanks.
So, sir, if we just type any text string, say ABCXYZ in Apple underscore count, in that Apple count instead of the Apple count, so it will just print ABCXYZ, right? In the template.
Come again, please.
So, in Apple underscore count equal to Apple count camel case, instead of Apple count camel case, if you just put ABCXYZ, just a string. So if that string value will be get printed on the outputted on the template.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. One more thing. No, that won't be the case because you are using v binding. I mean, one-way data binding or v bind.
Yeah, I
One-way
get it.
data
I get
binding
it.
will
If you
expect the
remove the
right-hand side value to be a variable.
no, you're right. I got it. If you remove the v bind and then put it, so it's going to come. So it's going to look for that thing to Apple underscore count is always going to expect something to come from somewhere, and the props is going to let the component know that it's going to get it from the parent component.
Yes, that's true.
Sir, I have pasted the code in the chat.
So I just scroll down, sir. This.
Just allow me a moment.
The last two messages.
Circle.log circle.prototype equals to
The one above. I mean,
prototype
it
equals
starts
to
from.
obj1. Okay. Circle is this, instructor is this. Then you add this area function in the prototype of the class itself. Fine. Then you say circle.prototype equals to obj1 dot proto.
I think both will be
obj1
true.
of circle. I think first one will be true, second one will be false.
So it's showing first one is false and the other one is true.
First one is false. Yeah.
Maybe let me quickly execute it. It's not defined.
I think underscore proto, sir.
Okay, it is saying false and true.
Sir, can I say something with regards to this?
Yeah, sure.
So the reason the first one is false is because the first comparison that we're doing is because it is object.prototype and not circle.prototype, and hence why it is false. Second one is true because object one dot proto directly references to circle.prototype.
Okay, all right. So the proto property, this proto property, two underscores and proto, this refers to the prototype of the parent object. This proto property refers to the prototype of the parent. So obj1. So I will even try to execute it once. obj1.proto. Sorry. All right. So it is only saying function, and if I go one step forward, okay, then we have reached to the object. All right, yeah, so that's correct. In that case, the proto property is actually referencing to the prototype of the parent. That is what is happening.
And what is the prototype of the parent?
Prototype of the parent? I didn't get it, sorry.
No, what is the prototype of the parent?
As we discussed in the beginning of this session, that prototype is a property that every function in object have. This is just a property where you can add stuff.
Okay, object proto will refer to the parent, and proto will refer to the grandparent.
Yeah, that's correct. So that is what we are seeing here. We are seeing object.
Okay.
Sir, there is nothing called obj1.
Sorry, guys. I will have to leave because I have some other commitments planned next in the day. So I will have to stop at this point of time. Maybe whatever queries that you may have, you can please post them on the discourse, as probably continuing this session will be a little bit difficult for me at this point of time.
Sir, if you
Thank
can
you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.
the session as you mentioned regarding to prototype, that will be helpful.
Sorry?
Or if you can share the live session, or
can you please post it on the discourse?
Yeah, okay.
Can you please post it on the discourse? I'll take it asynchronously.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
wish you all
Can you
the
not
best for
close
your
the
exam.
session, please? Can you not close the session, please? I just have a question to ask the other students over here. I'm having trouble with
sure. I'll stop the live streaming.
Yeah, I'm having problem with the incognito mode wherein you can see the other videos, but it just is not opening up. Is